All right. I think we're live.
Yeah,
We'll wait for people to start popping on here and
I'm refreshing. We could look at some different things. It's going to just keep changing right now. Dan Knodel was up, now he's down again.
okay.
I don't know what they're counting though right now. We're looking at the election. There's a lot of people on already. We're looking at the election results right now in real time. Anyone, please put comments in the chat if your ward has already come in, or if you see something that we're not seeing.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. This is Wisconsin Right Now Uncensored. We're obviously going to be doing special edition tonight. Jessica, I don't believe, is going to be able to join us. She's in Boston. She's working on a project with her students. I've asked her to try to come on later. We'll see if she does. But I also, her last message is that she's heading to a bar. So I don't know what we can expect from her tonight.
Yeah. I have wine. Ready.
Yeah.
It could be. It could. Yeah. Just preparing for what. Don't know what to expect just yet. And I'm looking at right now just Joe Manacqua and trying to keep up with what we're seeing. It's early and the turnout. Did anyone? I mean, if anyone out there, I know I've been getting texts all day about turnout, and it's all anecdotal. The turnout looks good. It's definitely seems that it's higher than it was in 2020. Is it as high as with Hagedorn? We don't know yet.
We're going to be having Ed Delgado will be jumping on with us. He sent about 15 minutes. He's taking care of some personal issues. Again, if you guys have any questions, we're going to kind of open it up to everyone to discuss tonight. Even if someone wants to come on, if you got something you want to say, I'd even be willing to let you come on if you want. You can join us by your laptop or your phone. That might be kind of interesting.
Yeah, we were watching Trump's first national speech in a very long time, discussing, his indictment, and got a little bit of an insight behind the scenes. We're all wondering what impact the indictment has on the Wisconsin election. Is that good news for Dan Kelly or not?
What did you think of Trump's speech tonight?
I thought it was good. I thought he, told a little bit of backstory, stuff that we hadn't heard straight from him. And I thought that, I thought the crowd was enthusiastically supporting him. I thought him kind of talking about how everything has from his perspective, it was good to hear, and that this is a witch hunt, something never before seen in American politics. And, it's just shameful. I think my impression is, from watching the media, they're gleeful, like CNN is getting its ratings back. They are thrilled to have Trump as the villain. That's their number one villain. They get to attack him. They get everything to be about Trump. They're desperate for ratings. I think Trump is a showman, and he shines in this arena. He is the martyr. He is the person that they are trying to take down. And he, if you see the pictures of him all day, where he's stoic, he's looking the camera right in the eye, there's no fear, he's confident. he's, I think that this is exactly where he shines, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he did what he had to do. I think he now has to pivot, make an argument as to what he's going to do for the American people. Um, it just can't be 4 more years of grievances and arguing
Yes.
with the media. We have to get this country back on track. Jennifer, regarding your question, right now I'm on the New York Times. Has pretty good election results going. Scarlett, what are you using tonight for election? I'm going to see if I can share the screen here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people saying they can't watch. It's too close. We know Habush. So we've got Jody Habush Seneca. She's won Fox Point, which is to be expected because we're also looking at the state Senate race, District 8. That is a special election, the seat of Alberta Darling, which has been held by Republican. I live in this district. It's been held by Alberta Darling for a very long time, decades. She's retiring, and Dan Knodel won the primary. There were 3, and Van Mobley and Janelle Branchin, Dan Knodel. And this is going to be, I went to the debate. This is a tougher race than I even expected earlier on. And because she's running as a crime fighting, tax cutting, pro-abortion candidate. So she's lying, basically. She's not going to be tough on crime. She is not going to cut taxes. The only thing she's being honest about is that she wants abortion on demand. She's going to vote lockstep with every Democrat in the state Senate. She's not going to differentiate herself from the more radical Democrats. And because the Democrats don't have power in the Senate, she can just fly under the radar. So hoping very much that she does not win the 8th Senate district, because that would mean that my area now, the 23rd, slipped from Jim Ott and, to Deb Andraka. And if we were to lose the 8th Senate district, that would mean a big chunk of Wow County is now in the hands of Democrats in Wisconsin. Not good.
Yeah. So on just for everyone's, I'm following Joe Hendrick also. He's at Joe Manacqua. He gives pretty good statistics and analysis. One of his, I'm going to pull this up here, one of his tweets.
Let's see.
Let's see here. I have to stop that screen. Is and this kind of gives a little bit of, let's see, I would be here. So this, I know Joe shared this the other day, and I thought this was pretty interesting, that this is the GOP goal. In order for Dan Kelly to win, they're looking at 67% needs to go out of Washington County, 57% Waukesha County, 52% Ozaukee, 28% out of Milwaukee, and that would get us to our 52%. Now that's obviously, I think, going to change, that could change based on turnout in each of those counties. So with that in mind, so Waukesha 57, I really think that's one we need to watch. And then the latest we have, Waukesha is right now at 59% for Kelly, and that's with 71% in. So I find that interesting. We'll see. We don't know what parts of Waukesha are in yet.
We're watching now, and I'm in the Mequon-Thiensville School District, and right now we have the one conservative candidate tied, and I'm watching that. I'm sure a lot of others, you're watching your school district, so please put in the comments if you are seeing any news in your area, like what district you're in, what county you're in, and what the results are looking like. Yeah, we're all just trying You see what's going
Yeah,
on.
I think everyone's watching in real time here.
Everyone's watching in real time, trying to
And
figure
let's
out.
see how's let's take a look over at Knodel. How is
Yeah, how's he doing? Let's look over.
That's a big race. I don't know how much we really discussed this publicly, but we were, a couple weeks ago I spoke with the campaign. They were comfortable. They were comfortable that they were going to win. And then just a couple days before the race, suddenly we were hearing it had tightened up significantly and had everyone very concerned about that. So
Knodel is at the 57% mark in Waukesha so far. Let's see. So that's good. But Waukesha County, I mean, this is really early on. Waukesha County, according to Joe Hendrick, not being so friendly to Dan Kelly thus far, but this is really early on. And it's, again, I think what hoping for District Senate, the Senate District 8 is basically Michael's won by, I think it was 51, 52%. So
yeah, Joe, you ask a good question. What do we do to get people out? A lot of people didn't even know about the election. You'd think you're living under a rock if you don't know.
I don't even understand it.
How you wouldn't know if you haven't turned on your TV or gone online in the last 2 months, how you wouldn't realize there's an election today. I don't know about. I don't have an answer for you on that. You're right though. If everyone would have came out voted today for Dan Kelly that voted for Ron Johnson, this thing would be won already. Let's see where we're at.
Kelly's got to do really well in Waukesha. Really well. Got to do good in Ozaukee, but really well in Waukesha, Brown County, Racine, and Kenosha. And then Protasiewicz has got to do worse in Milwaukee.
So Waukesha is still holding at 59%, 71% of the votes in. And again, we need Waukesha to have at least 57%, at least per the GOP goal. Mm-hmm. Ozaakee's at 52%. Okay. Ozaakee's right at the goal right now, and that's with 80% in.
That's good.
Depends what part of Ozaukee, right, Scarlett?
Yes.
If it's all the south end, that's great. If it's just the north, and I think the north is more conservative.
Yes,
right?
the north. Yes, the northern area is going to be more conservative. You're going, and for district, and this is different because Knodel goes beyond. He goes into Washington County and even Waukesha County. So the Ozaukee results. So and Knodel should do better in Washington County and Ozaukee County. Germantown is his. That's his legislative district is primarily in Germantown. He should do very well there. I haven't seen Washington County results yet, so.
Let's see if there's anything in Washington County come in. I voted around noon today with my daughter, and it was very busy. I was surprised how busy it is. So right now, Washington County only has 15% in.
Washington County is a stronghold for Kelly and for Knodel. So that's really important. And the county GOP, they rock, they're very motivated. They're, so I think that that's going to be good numbers, but you just got to maximize that area, squeeze out every last conservative vote, because we have to offset what's going on in Dane County, Milwaukee County, and frankly, the white suburban women who are voting on one issue. And that's where, of course, we've talked about this, where we're losing the moderate Republican, white white woman, suburban, and they are voting on abortion. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that in Eau Claire, in college towns, lines, one person said there was just lines going out the door, almost exclusively white young women. This is water, right? Not wine yet. Not wine yet.
You don't have wine yet?
Not yet. Still water.
I checked my liquor cabinet. I'm out of whiskey, so I don't have any whiskey tonight because I think we very well may need one here. Let's see.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
Tim, I'm not quite with you yet. I'm not going to post it up, but Tim is pretty pessimistic on tonight. We're not quite there. Yeah, John, let's see. Washington County, 64% in.
66%.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I just see it. He's right. 64% of the votes in, and Dan's got 66% of that.
So Kelly is maintaining the Hagedorn numbers in Dane County. That's good. We have Amy Richards, a school board candidate who's leading in Kettle Moraine against a liberal incumbent. That's good.
Okay.
These are the results. So those of you in your school district, let's get some good news about what's happening in the school districts. There should be some. Oh, geez, there's a lot of write-ins for school board in Mequon, Thiensville. That makes me nervous. And that would tell me, if there's write-ins, that would tell me that a lot of conservatives didn't know who to vote for. I put out a list that I could have put out a little earlier. I had there were some candidates that wanted me to hold back. Next year, I will not be doing that. I'm putting those lists out earlier, because the Moms for Liberty is, we're C4, we're not with any party, and people just need to know who to vote for. They just really need to know. And when I put out my school board list, the number one question I got was, why wasn't this out sooner? Right. I tried to get this out to as many private groups as I can. I didn't want to give the left sort of a target list, a hit list, but I think a lot of people, this is what needs to be understood. Conservatives don't know who to vote for in nonpartisan elections unless we tell them. We can't have super secret campaigns. It doesn't work for us.
Yeah. So again, going off of Joe Hendrick's analysis here, he has a pretty good analysis of, Hagedorn in 19. And remember, Hagedorn won by, was it 7,000, 9,000 votes? And looking at this is comparing Hagedorn versus what Kelly's going to need. We can keep, I think he's updating that. We can keep bouncing back to that. But like I said, he's doing some pretty good analysis here. I don't know how accurate it is yet with the low vote count that we can really rely on that one too much.
Let's see. Kelly is winning. That 90% of Ozaukee is in, and Kelly is winning by 53%. Marathon County, Kelly is winning by 55%. That's 88% in. Portasewich is winning Milwaukee by 70%. Dane County by 80%. Kelly's winning Waukesha by 58%. That has to get higher. I think That has to get higher. Washington County, Kelly is winning by 66%.
Yeah, and that's with 64% of the vote in.
What's not looking good, Eau Claire is to be Kenosha. Kelly is at 49 and Protosewich 51. That's with 83%. That's not good. Protosewich is winning. Oh gosh, that's not good. Green Bay, that's 51% in. That's not good. Then there's a lot of smaller counties that are not in at all. So, and those should all be good for Kelly. Let me see. Let's see this one. The white suburban women are not conservative. Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's nice, Sarah Ann. Yes, you're watching it with live company. Like we're real people, you know.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
You're watching it with just regular people that, you know.
Sarah's awesome. Sarah, if you want to come on, I'll give you a link. You can come on in and give us your analysis.
Come on, Sarah.
I think she watches it on her TV in the living room, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here.
Oh gosh. Not looking good.
What are you seeing that's not looking good here?
Someone was saying that I'm kind of getting everyone their Fox and Green Bay is reporting. Yeah, that's correct about what they're reporting from what I can see.
So again, in Ozaukee County, we need 52%. We need 52% in Ozaukee County to get to the GOP goal. And right now, Ozaukee with 90% in has 53%. So Ozaukee's holding up. Washington County, same thing. Washington County, we need 67%. That's the goal. And in Washington County right now, we're at 67%. That's what 71% in. So, I mean, skin of our teeth right now. Scarlett, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Knodel is holding on right now. He has 52% Ozaukee, 56% Waukesha. He's going to do well in Washington County. He's not going to do well in Milwaukee. That's okay. Kelly won Ozaukee, so that's in. You can say so. I'm from Ozaukee County. We worked really hard, and can officially say he's won Ozaukee, and I think he won it at a higher percentage than Michaels. And
yeah, that's a good point. We should pull up
brand new leadership. We were just voted in the second week of February. Had to hit the ground running, and in a very short time we worked our butts off, and I am so proud of all of the volunteers in Ozaukee County and all the new volunteers, and it's going to only go up. It's only going to go up from here. So
I think kind of what you've done in Ozaukee could be used, you know, what Ozaukee's doing and what Waukesha is doing, I think could be templates for the rest of the state. You know, I worked the last few days to put voter guides together. And I was kind of disappointed that I only got about 10 or 12 voter guides. What I would do is go on their Facebook pages, their websites, and try to, you know, and take their information. And there was only about 10 county parties that actually had any kind of voter guides. And I think that needs to be spread statewide. Now, I realize it's volunteer, so I'm not being hard on them, but I think that's a goal they should look at doing.
So here's the WOW counties are underperforming. What can be done to counter that? Do conservatives have to accept or not? I know this isn't, I don't think it's truly all about abortion. There are a lot of factors. There is, you can't put it all in, oh, it's just abortion. It's not. Has it changed dynamics? Yes. But there needs to be a post-mortem after this, regardless of the results, because Wisconsin needs to change the way that we run our everything, as far as, in my opinion, as far as the conservative movement and Republicans. There's things that are good. There just needs to be, I don't know. There needs to be, when you lose enough, it's time to make some changes. So.
Oh, do you want to come on? We're at live right now. Okay, I can't talk then.
Is that Jessica? Say hi.
Yeah, that's Jessica. She called.
Brian said he was going to come in. I'm sure he's sitting watching Brian Schimming. Brian Schimming is also brand new. Just started in December. So there's a lot of county parties that have switched leadership. Dane County, Milwaukee County. Where else? I just spoke to some of the new leaders. I know Ozaukee County. So a lot of county parties have, new leadership, a lot of very excited, a lot of ideas. And I was talking to Brian yesterday, and there's a lot of things getting bounced around. So if you're a conservative Republican, no matter what happens, just know that there are things to get excited about, and that it's going to take we've got to start doing things. We got to look at what the Democrats do well, and what they do well is mobilizing their voters and campaigning. They govern like crap. Okay. I won't use a swear word that I would like to right now, but they govern like crap. Okay. Democrats don't govern. They tank everything that we build. We build, they tear down, but they're really good at getting people out. They're really good at mobilizing, organizing. I think that kind of goes into, I guess what Jordan Peter would say, the whole, people that tend to be on the left are more the creative types, the social, outgoing, that kind of thing. So I think we're going to need to tap into that more creative, just really rebranding, rethinking. I think we can look to Florida. I think we can look to Iowa. I think there's things going on in Texas. I also think that we need to really heavily invest in the Hispanic community. I think there needs to be outreach. I think we need to get into Milwaukee. We have to stop ceding all of this ground. Forget the woke white women. Forget the white suburban woman, okay? She's just not that into you. That's what I say. She's just not that into you. Okay, she doesn't want you anymore.
I'm seeing with the AP, with 84% in, Habush Sinkin is leading by 2 points, 51-49 over Dan Knodel. And that's with 84% in.
Okay.
That's shocking. Yeah. That's shocking. That signals to me a bad sign for Dan Kelly. If Knodel cannot pick up the 8th seat.
I don't even know what to say to that.
Some good news so far out of Milwaukee for Dan Kelly. He's got 30% of the vote in Milwaukee, and that's a 77% in.
I think, can you put up Joe at Joe Manasco?
Yeah, Ed's here.
Hi, Ed. Hey, Jim, can you put up on the screen the Joe Handrick? I think rather than me say it, I think you need to pull it up.
Okay.
There's a little bit of an echoey sound.
Yeah, I had my sound up a little too high over here. So I do apologize for that.
Okay.
How you doing tonight, Ed?
I'm doing good. I'm doing, just finished up my podcast earlier tonight and keeping real close eyes on not only just the Trump arraignment and everything today, but also on the Supreme Court race. And man, I tell you,
So
you have a lot of craziness over the last year and a half. What we're seeing right now should be no surprise to anybody.
So if you look at Joe Handrick, he's basically calling it for Janet Protasewicz.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
How is it you're going to call it a race when you only have 63% of the vote in?
Yeah, I don't think. But he said it says I don't call races, but notice I quit posting about the Supreme Court race a while ago.
Mm.
So let's just. I would be.
We pulled up some results out of for the Senate seat. Yes. And Dan Knowles down 2 points with 84% in.
Ooh.
Any thoughts on that?
You're talking 2 points. That's within the margin of error.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's going to get fuzzy. 84%. Yes, things can still change, but is this a race that they're going to try to call tonight, or does it run into the wee hours of the morning? And if it runs into wee hours of the morning, are we going to be looking at, things changing at 2, 3 in the morning? Because we have seen that happen multiple times here in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What's the percentage of vote counted for there? You say 84?
Yeah, that was like 84%. That's what kind of
threw me a little bit. Someone saying, if this turns blue, I'm out to Florida. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my husband, that very real conversations about, how long we're going. It's when you get down, you think like, how much longer can I be in this fight? So I can understand you're saying that. I think it's not over yet. I think we have a lot to fight for, but I very much understand that sentiment. TMJ4 is predicting that she wins.
Who's that? Who wins?
Janet.
Oh, there's Jessica. Oh, maybe Jessica can come on.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Let me throw this out here.
I'm here.
And I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Because I've heard a lot of people say, when your state is swinging, and it's interesting because as we go into the 2024 election cycle, we have 3 states that are literally battleground. These are the most heavily, how do I phrase this here? If you look at what are the biggest battleground states here in the nation, is Arizona, it is Georgia, it is Wisconsin. If Trump picks up those 3, or whoever the Republican primary winner is, they win. And obviously all eyes are here in Wisconsin. I guess I look at it when an individual says, you know what, if this goes blue, then I'm just going to leave. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to Texas. I don't know. I like using pop culture references. It reminds me of Star Trek First Contact when they're talking about how the Borg, keep invading, encroaching on spaces. We draw lines in the sand, and then we say this far, no further. I don't want to give up on my state of birth. I was born and raised in Milwaukee, and I guess no matter how blue it gets, I'm not going to quit. The idea of moving to Florida is kind of cool. A lot of sun, a lot of heat, snow.
Yeah.
I just don't want to give up on my home state. This is my home.
Yeah.
And I guess I can't give up on that.
Jessica, you're on with us. How you doing?
I guess I'm okay. How are you guys? Can you hear me?
Good. You're in Boston right now? Where are you?
No, I'm in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Was in the Perfect Storm bar. It's called The Crow's Nest. That was the movie with what's his name? George Clooney, about the perfect storm that sunk a ship. Hey, kind of an apt metaphor tonight, unfortunately, for Dan Kelly. I think he was hit by the perfect storm. It's extraordinarily demoralizing, I think, for conservatives tonight. And right now, though, I'm watching the Dan Knodel race. And last time I looked, 86% in, he was ahead by 110 votes. Let me repeat
Um,
that. 86%, and he was ahead by 110 votes.
Yeah, right now AP's reporting, just so you know, that with 82% in, Dan is actually down by over 2 points right now.
I saw 86% he was up.
Okay.
So it's a little, I mean, that one's really, really, really close. I mean, we don't know what's still out in that district, right? It's close enough. Let's see. I'm watching that one right now. The Kelly thing, demoralizing, not particularly shocking when you look at the amount of money that flooded into Wisconsin from out of state donors for Protasiewicz. Not surprising when you consider the degree to which the mainstream media covered for Janet Protasiewicz, refused to cover obvious stories that they would have covered for against a conservative. You have to understand, conservatives are fighting a multi-front war when they run for election. They're fighting the entire media apparatus. They're fighting, the out-of-state celebrity big tech donor machine. And let's be candid. I think the Democratic Party has a better data operation, a better fundraising operation. I know Brian Schimming, who I have great respect for, is trying to change that, but he just started, right? Like he needs time to rebuild that. Whose fault it is that was allowed to sort of disintegrate into shambles. Like the party has no data operation. They have no turnout operation. They have no fundraising operation. I mean, they're starting to get one because of Brian, but what happened after Walker was defeated as governor? Why was that allowed to, atrophy?
So just let me step in real quick, Jessica. Both the AP and the New York Times have now called the race for Janet Protasiewicz.
She won.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way. I was just looking at it even before they did that, and it, the fat lady has sung. I mean, there's no way he can make up the ground. And I was particularly shocked by the margin in Waukesha County that I was seeing he was only getting 58% of the vote. Whereas back in the Walker days, Walker would get in the 60s, 65, maybe 67, something like that. And then we started to see that slowly erode, right? We started to see, with the Michaels race and so forth, like that margin in Waukesha County and the Wild County is eroding. I think 58%, that's really shocking. I think what it tells you is there was a huge turnout gap, right? I think that tells you the Democrats turned out. They are angry about abortion, right? They're motivated to get to the polls because of that issue. And conservatives didn't get off their sofas to vote. It's a turnout.
Right now, Knodel is down by 1,500 votes with 83% in. I don't even know what to say. I just don't even know what to say.
Well, Ron Johnson won statewide. So in the fall, he proved it can still be done. He, however,
he was with a historically horrible candidate.
Right.
I mean, the state's almost never seen a candidate that bad.
A historically awful candidate, a guy who was on video saying crazy things. He gave them a lot of fodder, Mandela Barnes. And Ron, of course, was an incumbent, right? I mean, that meant something. He was a very well-known, high-name ID incumbent, a controversial one. Constantly attacked by the media, survived a barrage of attacks, biased attacks in the media. But, he had the power of incumbency, extremely well financed. Reince Priebus deserves a lot of credit for that. He was his finance chair, I believe. A lot of money from out of state coming in for Ron because, it was about the U.S. Senate and all that, together he got over the edge. So Kelly, we're seeing here an open seat. He's getting outspent, although they started to catch up at the end. I respect him, but not a particularly dynamic campaigner. Absolutely slaughtered by the media in terms of just biased coverage.
The amount of ads I put up there, almost $50 million was spent, and the majority of that spent by Democrats just flooding the airwaves and hitting people that do watch television. And I think it's very difficult. And then on top of that, you've got the media that operates as just another arm of the Democrat Party. They're completely unfair.
I don't think it's just television either, because like I don't own any. I have televisions obviously, but I don't have streaming service. Or I have streaming services. I don't have like network TV or anything else like that. Even on all your Hulus, your Netflix, your YouTubes, the spending that was done from Protasiewicz and her camp and her advocates was through the roof. Social media through the roof, and this definitely plays into, I think, the low information voter, the independent, the politically uninitiated, and this is what we're seeing here.
Well, and let's not discount the power of the abortion issue on the left too, right? I mean, we all know this. We've said it 100 million times. We all get that. This is not, Wyoming, right? We've always been a closely divided state, and I think the Roe v. Wade thing, the abortion question, just tipped it over to the Democrat side. Like, there's, I don't get it. I'm pro-life, but you look at the polls, and most Wisconsinites are not with me on that. They're just not. That is the practical reality. So, the die were cast, I think, once Roe v. Wade was overturned, quite honestly. I thought Jennifer Doro would have been a stronger general election candidate, but I don't know. They were going to, slash and burn her too.
Yes. They were going to. It's, I think the grass is always greener, but she was a criminal defense attorney. They would have dug up any case. Look at what they did to Dan Kelly, early on in his career, when he barely represented, wrote a few notes for someone who they made him sound like a pedophile, a monster. I mean, it's ridiculous what they did with the ads. So what they would have done with her, who knows? Like, they would have, I think, would she have fought back harder? Maybe, yeah. But it's, I think the big thing is how much more money, how many more donors, how many more ads. There was right after the primary, there was a point where the Kelly campaign went dark. That was kind of a missed opportunity. But right now, I think all the people, I don't want to, there's probably a lot of very sad people right now. They worked really hard, and I don't want to,
Go ahead, guys, Jessica.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, Scarlett. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Associated Press is saying 87% of the votes in the 8th Senate district, and Dan Knodl is ahead. He's ahead by 1%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. He's ahead by about 700 votes right now, with 87% in.
Oh gosh.
So that's a little bit good news.
See what I mean? I had seen 86% before. He was ahead 110 votes then. And so now that's expanded. Not a lot. I mean, we're talking about 723 votes that he's ahead. So, my goodness, when people say every single person's vote counts, well, there you go. But I want people to remember that the 8th Senate district that we're talking about tilts Republican. Tim Michaels won that seat, I think, by 52%, even though he lost statewide.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Right now, I'm looking at Joe Handrick, and it has precincts reported 100% Dan Knodl as winning right now, 10,101, and Jody at 9,697. I don't know, this just went on, and it said with 21 precincts reporting, they have Dan Knodl as winning by it's basically 51 to 49%.
And I'm looking at the New York Times here, and it looks like Kelly's closing the gap. It was 13-point difference, but now we're looking at an 11-point lead here from Protasewicz. So it is
I
closing
mean,
a bit.
that's so. To be really honest with you, with that tells me there was just a massive turnout gap, like a massive enthusiasm gap in the favor of the Democrats. So if Dan Knodel pulls this off, even though that district tilts slightly Republican, that's still a pretty big feat for him, considering there appears to be a blue turnout wave, right? It's a turnout wave. So wow, like a testament to him if he holds on here in this massive Dem turnout, which obviously occurred. I mean, there's no other explanation for it. I don't think there's a lot of conservatives that suddenly decided to vote for Janet Protasewicz. I think they didn't turn out. I mean, I think it's really obvious.
No, what I read, hold on, what I read might be, I'm trying to see if that's total. That might just be Ozaukee County. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm trying to find, that might not have been overall.
Well, I was going to say, Scarlett, your numbers that you gave out didn't make sense.
Yeah, they didn't make sense. That was just one.
We're in the 36,000 vote area.
Yeah, he just won Ozaukee. I was just looking at Ozaukee, and that's one. So he did win Ozaukee. He won it by 51-49.
I want to get you guys' thoughts on this here. And, over the last 3 years, we had a huge demographic shift. A lot of it is because of COVID, especially during 2021 and with the housing market, with the changings in that. How much of that do you think we're seeing now with people leaving the cities and moving to places like Waukesha, going to more of the suburban areas, the metro areas outside of the inner city itself? Because I live in a rural area, and I see a huge shift up here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely applies to Ozaukee County. Ozaukee County is like almost now a 50-50. I mean, I think 52-48 was the last I saw, where Ozaukee used to be a very strong red county. So I think that you've got a lot of people migrating from Milwaukee County into southern Ozaukee County.
Here's another problem when it comes with Knodel and Mark Belling spoke on this yesterday. There's a small contingent of folks that kind of that really dislike Vos. And they were advocating all over social media if you want to send a message, they were actively telling people to vote for Jody Havish-Seneca, which I thought was just deplorable, absolutely deplorable. I have zero respect for anyone who claims to be a conservative and who would actually tell other Republicans and other conservatives to basically vote for a Democrat and put this very radical wing in charge of our state, just to send a message. What message? That you want our state to become like, is that the message, like Chicago, like Illinois, like New York?
Well, there was also the write-in option too, write dump Vos, which was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you can have your issues with Robin Vos, fine, have them, but to throw away a seat, that's absurd.
Absurd.
So let me get your take on that. We've had a lot of debate about that privately. How significant? I mean, in my opinion, those anti-Vos people are smaller, just loud handful on social media. We hear from them, but do you think that really translates over in election results?
I think it's on social media. You're seeing more the leadership and I say leadership, with air quotes. Right. You're seeing the leadership of that movement. I think physically, when you're on the ground, and I'm in the central Wisconsin area, it's much bigger than I think what a lot of people think it is. And even within various county parties, which I've had the privilege of going to, it's, again, bigger than what you're seeing on social media. And I think it does play a factor in that. And of course, one person who's very anti, in this case, Robin Vos, will have a compounding effect when you're talking to their family, friends, and everything else. Because oftentimes people that aren't politically initiated will oftentimes go back to the person who they think is more politically knowledgeable, or as I heard once said, politically sophisticated. I love that phrase, by the way. But I think that does play a factor. Now, whether it's enough to move the needle more than 1 or 2 points, that I don't know. But it is, 1 or 2 points in a state like Wisconsin. It is, the Hagedorn race, 7,000 votes. 1 point could have shifted that whole race right there.
Yeah. Hey, Jessica, what was the results in 2020 of Dan Kelly's race? Did he get 44%? Is that right? Do you remember? Jessica, are you there? Oh, maybe she's gone. Do you remember, Ed? Was it 44% that Dan Kelly got last election?
That I don't recall.
I'm trying to look it up right now because he's at 43.6 right now.
Yep, seeing that. Back to a 13-point differential.
Yeah.
We still have a lot of counties that aren't reporting, too. Marquette, which I know is heavily Republican. Green Lake, heavily Republican. What do we got? Adams County, heavily Republican.
Jessica, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, do you remember the last election, 2020? What did Dan Kelly lose by? Do you remember what his percentage was?
Yeah,
Was it
I do. Yeah, I do. He lost by 10.5%. So what I was going to comment, I have a few comments on everything you guys have been saying. Comment one is, his margin tonight is pretty remarkably similar.
Yeah.
He was a flawed candidate then. He's a flawed candidate now. I think he's a very good person and he's a brilliant man, but he's just not a great politician. Someone described to me that he's the kind of person you want to appoint to the position because he's a great justice, but he's not. And then you hope the power of incumbency will carry him through the election because it's not a natural campaigner, obviously, right? Great justice, not a great politician, quite honestly. He ran on that, but I guess that didn't break through because of the spending, on her side. What's sort of shocking, though, is that in 2020, it was the Democratic presidential primary. And as you guys remember, it was Bernie versus Biden that drove Democratic voters out. And Republicans didn't come out to vote because Trump had no opponent in that primary in 2020. So they didn't have a reason to come out. And I think something like the next day, Bernie dropped out of the race. So he clearly stayed in the race to drive out Dem turnout to take out Kelly. What's sort of shocking is that you have an eerily similar margin now without that, Democratic presidential primary factor. And so it tells me that Democrats, once again, they're on fire when it comes to turnout. And obviously it's abortion. They are very motivated. And, maybe Republicans are demoralized for several reasons. They're demoralized by what happened in November. They're demoralized by seeing endless Janet ads all over TV and almost no response, it seemed, for weeks from Kelly. They're demoralized probably by the Trump indictment. I thought it was possible that would turn people out, but maybe that's demoralizing. And I'm going to be honest, I think Trump for, a year now or 2 years, whatever, haranguing constantly that people's votes don't matter, that it's rigged, blah, blah, blah. Like there may be some Trump people who say, I'm not voting anymore because I believe that. So I don't think what Trump has constantly been saying about, the election and election integrity is a very big motivating factor for conservatives to come out and vote.
Jessica, what you just said has me really reconsidering. And I think you always have to be able to see that, see evidence and maybe change your thinking. And where we discussed last week that what was happening to Trump would have a positive effect for Dan Kelly, I think it's time we start to think that what's happening to Trump could have had a detrimental effect or none. And if it had a detrimental effect, if it depressed vote, if it demoralized maybe a certain portion of conservatives, that needs to tell us something about the future. We have to be able to look at the data after this. We have to have a postmortem. We have to put our prejudices aside. We have to look at things and look them straight on. If we're going to win, you have to do that. And if what is happening to Trump is going to depress and demoralize, then we really have to think about what we're going to do for 2024, because not only is it Trump, is he potentially at the top of the ticket? Everyone under him is going to have to, everyone has to understand, anyone running for office in 2024 is going to be attached to the person at the top of the ticket. And I think that we have to wonder, we can't assume that what's, while very wrong, everything that's happening to him is wrong. It's a miscarriage of justice. It's absolutely horrific. It's weaponizing the judiciary. Are people tired of the job? Are they tired of the show? Are they just tired? You know, are Republicans tired? Are they ready for someone who's like DeSantis? Do they want somebody who you know, is someone who gets things done, who doesn't have a lot of drama?
Let me add to this here, because when you look at, you know, the Trump indictment, within the first 48 hours, he ended up like fundraising $8 million. I mean, I think that's the big story of what's going on. The arraignment today, you know, definitely sucked all the air out of the room. My problem with Trump over the last couple of years has always been, you know, oh, you know, we were cheated. Okay. I'm kind of done with that. If you understand 2020, you understand why Trump lost. But what we're seeing now, and Trump is far and away the Republican frontrunner. We're talking now since the initial indictment, his polling went through the roof. DeSantis went down, and I love DeSantis, don't get me wrong. I've been very on the fence with regarding Trump because, again, I'm tired of the whole, you know, it was stolen. Okay, a lot of people have said that. But here's another problem I see with this race here today. How much of the schism that has happened as a result of all the it's stolen, it's patriot movement and everything else, how much of that had an impact in today's election here in Wisconsin? Because I've seen it happen with my own eyes over the last year and a half. And it's been ridiculous, and it's fractured and schismed the Republican Party of Wisconsin. How much of that got that kind of impact? How many sore feelings? Because if you go back to November 22, that election there, really, at the end of the day, it wasn't a Tim Michaels thing. It was anybody but Rebecca, and there was a group of people that just did not want her to be the Republican runner there.
So I wanted to make, you know, I agree with you actually, and I wanted to talk about Robin Vos for a second, because you guys brought him up in the Patriot movement or the groups. Here's my take on that. Like, it is just time to stop talking about Robin Vos. The legislature is the one thing Republicans have right now. And unfortunately, with Janet Protasiewicz, you know, and a new liberal majority on the court, it's probably going to be, you know, at warp speed that they'll redraw the legislative districts and the congressional districts, and they're going to try to accomplish now through control of the court what they can't do in the ballot box. That's a problem. And, you know, entities like the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty that can fight back legally are going to be ever more important in that battle, but it's now moved to that forum. That being said, why are people obsessing about Robin Vos when, you know, his ability to grow and maintain majorities in the legislature is pretty much the only thing Republicans have going for them right now, other than Ron Johnson? And of course, well, I should take that back. And electing, you know, a Navy SEAL to Congress in Ron Kind's, you know, former district, but, you know, that can now all be undone. So this Patriot group, I've called them the 2.5%. My opinion is, you know, if they were a bigger percentage of the electorate, then Tim Ramthun would have done better, then Adam Steen would have done better. So they don't seem to be a major force in primaries. They're loud. Some of them, not all, some of them are obnoxious. They're extremely loud on social media. So then everyone kind of looks at them, and I think people think that they're more powerful than they are. Absolutely. I'm not even sure they bring in enough votes to play spoiler in a primary, or again, you would have seen Ramthun and Steen be bigger factors than they were. I get that Steen almost took out Vos in the primary. I think that's because you had the former leader of the free world parachute into the race, you know, and rail on Vos like right before the primary. That was pretty aberrant. So I guess I think that was about Trump. It wasn't necessarily about like some sign of strength in the Patriot movement. I think everyone just needs to stop with the Vos hate. He's not perfect, but come on. I mean, you know, the game here, of course, is a super majority. And Republicans are 2 seats short in the assembly. If Dan Knodl hangs on, they've got a super majority in the Senate. So again, now enter the new liberal-controlled Supreme Court. So I don't know what to say, you guys. The other thing I wanted to point out is what Scarlett had said about the media. And I have to tell you, I am absolutely aghast at how the media, Wisconsin and nationally, covered this race. Jim and I succeeded today in getting the New York Times to actually delete an extraordinarily biased and misleading, if not outright false, statement about us. So that's a coup that we managed to actually get them to delete it. It was so bad. Just the astonishing refusal of the media to cover, allegations that Janet Protasiewicz is racist and committed elder abuse. Now they're allegations, but they covered similar things with Brett Kavanaugh. They covered allegations, against Brett Kavanaugh, sexual assault. They were all over Jennifer Doro's teenage son using a couple of anonymous sources. Like, I could go on and on. But when it came to Janet, the media said, "Oh, nothing to see here." So you have to question. You have to question. Did Wisconsin just elect an alleged racist to the state Supreme Court? And why is it that Wisconsin's news media are very uninterested in that question?
Well, there was a comment that Steve Austin, Wisconsin, made on Twitter that I think is really good. The Democrats don't vote for candidates anymore. Look at Biden, look at Fetterman. They vote on issues. That's it. They don't care who the candidate is. A racist beats up her elderly husband. A terrible
allegedly
has lots of other issues. Allegedly, she's not likable. She's completely unlikable. They don't care. They're voting on their issues. They're doing what they're told. They're bombarded with these issues, whereas Republicans, I think a lot of conservatives are. I think there is so much demoralization. I think, and again, when I know someone said, "Oh, turning on Trump," like that's not true. Like, we have
How
to.
dare you betray Trump? How dare you?
I think everything that's happening to him is wrong. If he's the candidate, I would vote for him. Okay. What I'm trying to say is we have to be able to be honest, and not in this never Trump kind of way, but the demoralization that has happened, not because of Trump 2016, but because of, first of all, and I will say this, and to anyone, I will go toe to toe. His leadership the last year was terrible during COVID. He did not lead. Fauci and Birx ran the show, and he stood back and watched it happen while my kids were masked, while we were all staying home. When certain governors like DeSantis and governors in Georgia, when they were opening up, Trump criticized them. Trump criticized Sweden. Okay, we can't have amnesia. We have to be honest as conservatives. We can't lie, because if we do that, if we lie to ourselves, we are going to keep losing. We have to. You can like Trump and like his policies and still criticize what's happening and think we've got to get. We can't. I am tired of being caught between the never Trumpers and the always Trumpers. I am tired of it. Like, it's demoralizing. It's not. It shouldn't be this one way or the other. Either you are 100. You have to like everything he does, or you hate him. How about you're just a normal person who voted for him and likes a lot of what he did, but you are able to use your brain in an analytical way and say, hey, there's some things that are wrong. There's some things that we have to look at, and we have to understand that not everyone is in this echo chamber like us, and they can see the nuance.
You guys, I want to break in just quickly. So the AP is now estimating 90% of the vote in now, and Dan Knodel is still ahead by about 723 votes.
Oh God!
So he's holding on, but I'm curious where the remaining 9% is. Like, is it in Washington County, or is it on the North Shore? Right? Like, where's that 9%?
Someone commented that we gotta be careful of brown deer, because
Yeah,
if brown deer is
right.
not counted yet, brown deer
Right.
will go for Habish sinking. So that's something we got to worry about.
Yeah, I don't know where the remainder, and I have a text out to someone that would know. I didn't hear back yet, but like, where is that 9%? I'd rather be Dan Knodel right now than Jody Habish Sinekin, but wow, is that one's close. Coming back to the question of, I thought that was a really interesting point, how Scarlett was talking about Democrats don't really care the flaws in their candidates. They're running on issues. But what's always been interesting to me is I don't think most members of the public, with the exception of abortion in Wisconsin, I don't think they really believe in liberal principles. I don't think they want to abolish or defund the police. I don't think they want
don't.
prison people released, en masse from prisons. I don't think they want higher taxes. I think they believe in church and family and work ethic and all of the things that Republicans say they stand for. So that tells me that Republicans are number one, not getting their message through the biased media filter, and they're getting outspent, so they're not getting it up on TV, and they're being mischaracterized as extremists and radicals and decertification nuts. None of that was true about Dan Kelly, but he got pegged that way over and over again through these bias filters. And number two, it tells me that conservatives are demoralized, like we've been saying all night, and some of that might be on Trump's back, where he constantly convinced people that don't bother turning out because it's rigged and your vote won't be counted. I don't think he was right about that, and we have said that many times. And that compiled with what happened in November and so forth, and just the lack of a data operation and a turnout machine. We were hearing from people who were knocking on doors in some of these races who were really frustrated because they were getting incredibly outdated lists that were just worthless.
I can tell you that, Jessica, 100%. I'm sorry. Campaign sidekick sucks. All right. I said it.
Maybe you told us that.
It's not good. It's not great. I mean, there's got to be a better way. I have an idea. My idea is that we start canvassing like next week, take a little break, and we start canvassing and going door to door and asking people, did you vote Democrat? Did you vote Republican, independent? What are your top 3 issues? That's it. That we get these data lists. We get them right. I mean, I have lists where I was going door to door, and there's a list of 5 people, and you don't know who lives there. And sometimes none of them actually live there. And I'd get told they haven't lived here in 10 years. They haven't lived here 15 years. Now it's their kids living there, not the parents. And the kids are like, no, I'm voting for the woman. And one time I said, what's her name? And they're like, I don't know. It's the woman.
We have Anne Marie's been here kind of pounding her fist on the desk, making her point about abortion. I completely agree with her. She said everything is right now is a single issue. How can the party not see the obvious reason and why? I think she's right. It's all about abortion. And until we as a party figure out this abortion issue, and I know we're going to divide it on that, and I argue with my daughter on it. Jessica, you and I have battles on it. But there's going to have to be a compromise. We have to get it figured out.
The party.
Well, you know what? Now the court will do it. The court's going to do it.
The court's going to take care of it. If there's one thing that's going to happen, the courts are going to take care of this issue, and it's not going to be in the hands of the state. When we could have compromised on something, now it's going to be abortion on demand. Let me
throw this here. So I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, and my son is very clear to remind me that I'm ancient, not old. But I'm old enough to remember where the left was talking about safe, legal, and rare. That was always been the great compromise. Now it's abortion on demand, or let's just lock up somebody. And we've gone so polar where literally the compromise is really right there. Safe, legal, and rare. Or as Ron Johnson said it best, go to a referendum, let the people decide. Let them figure that out. Now, I have to disagree with Scarlett on something. Scarlett, I love you. Please don't beat me up next time you see me.
No, I won't.
I don't think your average Democrat or your average independent or even your average Republican voter are issue voters, single issue and or otherwise. I think a lot of them are just NPCs. because you will have Democrats that will vote only because there's a D after that person's name. Worse yet, if you go further down the ballot and it's a statewide race, there will be people that will just vote for the person because they don't know. They know the top of the ticket, they know the next, ballot, but what they don't know are the people below. They will vote for the first person who's on top of that particular race. There's a lot of people that, again, politically uninitiated people that don't know. Because what is the average person out here? We have to be aware of our bubble as well, too. Our bubble, generally speaking, are people that are in the know. We shake hands with these people. We know these people that are influencers and movers and shakers. But the average person, they wake up, they go to work, they work too long, they don't make enough money, they come home, make dinner, maybe they'll hang out with their kids, go to bed, rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So somebody just told me they were listening to Dan Kelly's speech. I'm going to give you a huge caveat. I'm not listening to it because I'm in Gloucester, Massachusetts, standing outside the Crow's Nest bar that was in the Perfect Storm movie. And I'm streaming from there. So, and I'm talking to you guys. So I didn't hear it, but they characterized it. They said it. I mean, he took some shots at Janet, supposedly, and I didn't listen to it. This person saying that he called her an unworthy opponent and things like that, and that it was kind of an angry speech. I'd like to listen to it to judge that for myself. Maybe anyone in the comment thread who heard it could tell us if that's true and like the tenor of Kelly's statements.
Someone in the comment thread, I'm trying to find it right now, said that he basically eviscerated her on his speech. It was really good. But honestly, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that emotion and tone during the campaign instead of after.
Yeah, good point, Jim. He didn't take the gloves off fully during the campaign. It was immensely frustrating. He like during the debate, he didn't even talk about the racial slur and elder abuse allegations, for example. And so now he takes the gloves off and eviscerates her in a concession speech. Like, what are we missing here?
You're exactly right, Jessica. You're exactly right. Where was that fire? Like, where was that? And another thing, 2 points. Somebody said that maybe it was me. I'm talking about it more, blaming Trump, blaming the Trumpers, not the leadership. What I'm trying to say is that there's not one reason. There are many, and they all add up a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Leadership, yes. The campaign, yes. Things that Dan Kelly not taking the gloves off and fighting this because it is political, unfortunately. I wish these judicial races weren't, but they are. And he is great. He's a wonderful person. He kept things above board, but he didn't fight back hard enough. And I'll tell you one thing, a quote I put up today. There's one thing that there's only one language for Marxists, okay? It's not let's reason together. What is it? Solzhenitsyn, who said they respect the fist. You have to fight back. You have to punch back twice as hard if we're going to win as Republicans. And that's one thing. That's the great thing about Trump. He punches back twice as hard. So how can we do that, but also balance that? That's the question. So this isn't about, I am the last one. I don't like that. I don't blame Trump, blame this or that. It's a whole bunch of things that we have to think about so that we can win. We're having these conversations right now because we want to win. My goal is to win because we need to have power back in Wisconsin at an institutional level. And my last point is that Lisbon is still not in for Knodl. That should be an area that should be over 1,000 votes for Knodl because Michaels beat Evers by over 1,000 votes. So, I mean, that might be a little high, but so maybe while Brown County isn't in, there's still some very red areas that aren't in. And so let's keep hoping.
So okay. So, I mean, Knodl's ahead by about 720 votes or so, and 9% still out. So you're right. What matters is where that's coming from. Obviously, the portions of the district are his assembly seat, right, in Washington County. Portions are in the North Shore suburbs, which would tilt more liberal. So it's a sort of a strange district. It's become more more conservative through redistricting, right? Like I said before, Michael's won it, I think, by like 52% of the vote. But the fact that Knodel is like clawing his way to, potential victory here in a district Michael's won while losing statewide tells you something about how big the Democratic enthusiasm gap was here. And I guess, I'm just going to kind of give you the list again for people who just joined us. Here's my quick list of why. Number one, abortion, right? A huge motivating factor, not only I think for some liberals, but I know some Republican women that are
Me too.
that want abortion. I don't. I'm against it, but some do. And honestly, I had a door knocker knock on my door in the town of Oconomowoc the other day, and they told me that in Oconomowoc, reliably red territory, a lot of elderly people were undecided and were telling them, "Oh, we're worried about women's rights." So the framing of that issue of what abortion is, it's been framed as a woman's right, and that has sunk into a lot of people. That's how they see it. That's how a lot of younger people see it. Apparently some older people see it. That was ominous when I heard that, because that's out in Waukesha County. So obviously, number one, abortion. Number two, Republicans are demoralized. What we've been talking about, Trump coming out and telling them their vote doesn't count. The losses in November, Trump being indicted, all of this together, I think, led to a demoralized Republican electorate. Three, the Democrats have a better data game. Four, they're outspending conservative candidates. And then five, just the weakness of Kelly as a candidate. He was easy to sort of mischaracterize, as a political extremist, no matter how much he tried not to be a politician. He never, aggressively took the gloves off on her. He tried to play this game of this is a judicial race and I'm not a politician. She's the politician, but Scarlett's right. This became a political race. This was a political race.
Yes.
And he didn't play it that way. And so when you put all that together, I guess that is what happened. Now, we have to remember there's still a winning formula for Republicans in the state, or we wouldn't have a Republican state treasurer and we wouldn't have U.S. Senator Ron Johnson. Those were statewide races Republicans won just a couple of months ago. There is a winning formula, but I think in a race like this, abortion was more paramount in people's minds than it was in the U.S. Senate, because literally the 1849 law will come now before the court. Whereas Ron Johnson didn't have as much power to do anything about abortion in Wisconsin. So I think that issue was a stronger factor in this race probably than in that one.
I think you're right. I think that abortion played far heavier in this race because of the 1849 law. I do. I think that probably the first big thing that's going to happen is that is addressed and abortion will be legal again in Wisconsin. I mean, that's just something we have to accept. That's going to happen. It's going to be the first thing that they want done. Part of me thinks that Democrats might be wise to not do that because they'll take the issue away from, they'll take the issue that they can use in 2024. So who knows? But I think that there'll just be too much pressure to get that taken care of. And I think it was a huge part, but also, I mean, what did Sarah Ann say that you guys gave the ammo and wrapped it up in a bow and it wasn't used? I mean, you have to run a campaign. And here's the thing I'd like to say, whether it's school board or
let me step in real quick on that. We gave not only his campaign, but third parties could have easily picked up our stuff too.
Right.
Facebook, social media, advertising. I mean, it was one thing we battled the media for the narrative on that. But then when you have the campaigns and third parties refusing to do anything with it too, you're right. We gave them the knife and they just dropped it.
I mean,
let me add this in here real quick too.
Go ahead, Ed.
One of the things that I've been paying attention to, especially over this last year and a half during the 2022 election cycle and then right now, is Republicans as a whole, whether it's here in Wisconsin or across the nation, we always want to try to be above the board. We don't want to go into the muck and the mire. Instead, Democrats are fighting and they're trying to go for the throat. They're trying to get to the jugular. We need to be fighting like we're the third monkey trying to get onto the ark. And if we're not going to fight like that, then it's no surprise that we don't lose. And I love Dan Kelly, great man. And I love the fact that he's always given me the opportunity to speak with him, at extended length.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same point, if you're not going to fight, like I said, to be the third monkey to get onto the ark, you can't do that. And I don't care if it's with this cycle or the last one going forward. We need somebody who's going to fight, but we don't want somebody who's going to just the bull in the china shop, as it were. We want a fighter that's strategic, almost an MMA fighter, if you will. But that being said, though, one of the things I think that's really important going forward into the 24 election cycle is Republicans suck at creating culture. Maybe we need to start doing that here in Wisconsin. Culture, like Andrew Breitbart said it best, politics is downstream from culture. If we don't get that and get it now, then we're not going to be able to grab these next generation of voters. More importantly, well, I would say equally important, we need to start advocating for groups instead of fighting on social media and various influencers and whatnot. And I see all these infighting that's happening within the Republican Party and conservative movements while entertaining unproductive.
Yes.
This is why I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing here with Wisconsin right now, because you guys are having conversations. You guys are bringing forth people. You're asking questions. This is what needs to be done. This is how we start creating culture.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, and then also expanding those endeavors, 24 is going to be not just embarrassing for the nation, but especially for Wisconsin, considering we have the RNC's convention here in Milwaukee. That's just my take.
And I want to
That's a
say,
good point.
considering we're going to have the convention in Milwaukee, where was the RNC in all of this? Where were they? Why didn't they invest heavily in this race?
Absolutely.
Where are our billionaire donors? I mean, they've got billionaire donors they've got Pritchard, they've got every billionaire across this country and outside of it with Soros donating. They see how important it was. Why couldn't they see how important it was, considering we are about to have the 2024, it's going to be here. We're going to have the convention here. And maybe at the end, we had some national influencers talking about this, but why we needed more from the RNC. And I'd like to know why. And I'm not going to blame the RNC in whole. I want to know if was the Dan Kelly campaign, was Dan Kelly open to receiving money? Did he reject that money? Did they want a part of this? And did he say no because it was partisan? So I don't want to throw on a lot of blame till I know more, but I do wish that we had more money. We needed the money. Money is the mother's milk of politics. And we need it. We need it for these nonpartisan races. We need it all the way down. And when you said strategic fighter, you're exactly right. Not the bull in the china shop. I think 2016 Trump was a strategic fighter. The greatest one of the moments I will never forget is when he won that 2016 race. If he is going to be our nominee, if he's going to continue to do it, he's got to be that person again.
And one of the things I really liked about Trump, especially after the primary, because with the primary, he was the bull in the china shop. During the actual election cycle itself, he was the rope-a-dope. He was Ali. He was blasting on Twitter all this stupid stuff, but then he would come at you with the left. The thing that interests me, and this is very important that you said this, where was everybody else nationwide? Scott Presler came in and he did his thing. Where were the Tim Pools, the Steven Crowders, the Ben Shapiro's, everyone else? Because everybody knows how important Wisconsin is. This is literally the tip of the spear from both parties with regards to the presidential election in 24. Sorry, Jim, I just had to throw that in there.
No, and you're right. I do want to mention Scott Presler. He did yeoman's work. I'm glad that he was here. The numbers probably could have been worse. I'm really glad that he was around. I did want to add that we do have an example of a strategic fighter who wins, and that is Ron DeSantis. He has all the mega, but very strategic. He fights, goes for the jugular, but in a way that is just different. I've just been so impressed by it. Mm-hmm. So I think. No, and that's been in Florida, but he's fought some big forces. I know he hasn't hit the stage of the national stage as much yet. That could be different, but I think we've got two great contenders, and I am excited to see what happens.
Meg Downleo here, I have his comment. He raised a couple good points again. Voter ID, absentee ballot boxes, the absentee boxes. Well, obviously, Supreme Court's going to rule now against voter ID. It's going to have significant impact in the national race in 24. But also, people, I wish the campaign, the Kelly campaign and the third parties would have hit Act 10 more. Because I guarantee you in a year, when Act 10 gets overturned and everyone's property taxes increase 33% or 50%, everyone in the state's going to be screaming about their property taxes. And we can point back to this moment is why that happened. And you had your chance to get out and vote and you didn't. So don't complain about your property taxes. And I would have liked to have seen some more commercials about that and Dan Kelly's campaign making that point on how property taxes are going to significantly increase.
Do you think bad things need to happen for people to wake up? Do you think things are going almost to, like, we've got the surplus, things haven't changed? Like, Wisconsinites are so used to things, running well right now that I think they've had the luxury to just, I'm going to vote on abortion because they haven't had an increase in taxes. They haven't had their property taxes go up. We have a huge surplus that we're trying to decide how to spend. I think that, I think people are spoiled. And
I think it's a cycle. I think it's a cycle through the history of this country. Mm-hmm. Honestly, conservatives come in my opinion, we make things good. And then everyone gets comfortable and says, let's have some liberal thoughts and opinions. And then they go in and destroy it within a couple years.
100%. Here, let me share a story with you. And I love this story because it's my story. 7 months ago, September 12th, 2022, I weighed in at 317 pounds. And I had trouble walking. I was, just uncomfortable. And I knew I had to do something better. Today, as I sit here before you, I weighed in at 226 pounds, 91 pounds.
Wow. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I did that through discipline and through eating right, exercise, all that other stuff. People, when they get comfortable, complacent, lazy, you have to suffer in order to make some change. And when I start walking around some old school, movie caricature, that's not cool, especially when I know I can be better. The problem is, though, is that when we look at what's happening in 2020, what do we have? And I could spend a half hour easily breaking down the 2020 election, but people didn't hurt enough. And we're still not hurting here in Wisconsin. And I think to your point, Scarlett, you were talking about, just not comfortable. You can be uncomfortable for a long time, but if the pain doesn't set in, if the inflation is not enough, you're still going to go ahead and do that. And I think Scott Froston put it tough. Best here. Tough times create strong men. And right now, we have a lot of weak men. And that's a problem. Because if you have weak men, you have weak families. And then, of course, you got the over disintegration of the family unit here. And it's not just exclusive to Wisconsin, it's statewide or nationwide. That's a problem.
Yeah. I'm just checking total still 93% in and nothing's changed in the Senate race. Dan Cano still leads by just over 700 votes. A little getting concerned about what's going on there. I just want to point out how eerily similar the results are as a percentage in the Supreme Court race. I mean, they are almost mirror image. It's within a couple points. And when you consider $45 million has been spent on this race, it's shocking to me that Dan Kelly looks like he's going to lose. He could lose by 10 or 12 points here.
Wow.
10 or 12 points.
And I was going to bring this point up with Jessica and what happened with the internal polling that we had been seeing. Were we being lied to? Scarlett, with some of these internal polls, we were told 2 points, then 4 points, and then razor thin. And
by
what happened to those polling? Was that just shadows and mirrors here, or what was that all about?
I mean, we had several insiders say that polling was within razor thin margin of error.
Yeah.
The only truth, but what I was told about with Dan Knodel, that was right, that it was neck and neck. So that was correct.
That's right. That's scary. It's scary. It was this close. Again, that should have been a 5-point race, right? I think we were expecting Knodel to win this race by at least 5 points.
So I'm going to say something about Mequon Thiensville right now. The one, Kate, looks like Kate Baramuko won, and she's a Democrat. She's received money from the Democrat Party. She said that she thinks in Mequon Thiensville that kids should be able to hide their pronouns and their if they have a name change or gender change, they should be able to hide that. She's openly for critical race theory. The most left-wing candidate we've ever seen in Mequon. It looks like she could have won by 39 votes. 39 votes.
Wow.
And there is the Ozaukee Democrat Party. I think Cedarburg also had some losses. They've been operating very much underground, but they are involved. The unions are involved. And I had a lot of candidates that didn't want to look political. They didn't want to take money from the Republican Party. They don't. And I'm not, I think that I know some areas where it's more conservative and you can sort of, it's something I'm working out. How do we win school board races in areas that are like, I have to look closer at Mequon, but how do we get more of that to translate down to school boards? We have in areas where Mequon, where Republicans win, but then the school board candidates that are nonpartisan, it doesn't go down ballot. And there's a lot of people that don't know who to vote for. They don't know who's conservative. It gets lost in translation somewhere. And so that's concerning for me for school board elections. So
are you hearing, Scarlett, are you hearing any results on the school boards? Do you have anything?
They're not good in my area. Mequon, Thiensville, like I said, there was a candidate that we really thought was going to win. And so far she's down by 39 votes. I think there might be one small pocket that isn't counted yet, but that it's harsh. And I think Cedarburg, I'm not sure how Cedarburg went. I don't think it looks good. And but there was some things going on in Cedarburg. So if anyone knows, I would love to hear some good news about some school board races. Otherwise I'll be looking into that tonight and tomorrow.
Once again, leave it to the Journal Sentinel, right? With the Cedarburg race. Not that
I know.
I agree the guy probably shouldn't be in there. But again, when has the Journal Sentinel ever did a negative story on a Democrat in this entire race?
Absolutely.
Someone said they all lost. Where? For Rachel, in what area did they all lose?
Yeah, Rachel, if you can tell us, we don't have the update on that.
If you're talking pronouns, by the way, somebody wants to ask me mine. It's my lord, master, sir. I'm just, identifying however I choose. This is where I think we really need to buckle down on a local level. And yes, it's going to be painful because we want to get a lot of these statewide races and everything, but we really have to start isolating on these local levels. And how do we do that? And I think a lot of it is, again, going back to culture, going back to what you guys here in Wisconsin right now are doing. And I think, we need to start really focusing on not just social media, but I think when I saw you guys doing this video podcast, to me, that was like the greatest thing because it was like, great, taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
You're on the ground reporting, your investigative reporting on point. Now, what can you guys do to kind of elevate it to the next level? To me, this is like absolutely phenomenal. So, again, I want to congratulate you guys for doing this and, keep it up.
Appreciate that. My goal on doing this, I want to bring in voices from all around the state. Ed, and I mean, you're perfect. You're from central Wisconsin. We'll bring in Stephanie from Door County. I want to get perspectives from all around the state, just not southeastern Wisconsin. So not only do we just grow, that would also help grow our audience statewide. Let's hear about the things going on up north. Let's hear about the things going on in the western part of the state. We never hear about that. What's going on up north? And so I think those would be good conversations to have.
And I think it's really great that you guys are doing that, because like you take Stephanie, Suchek over there in Door County. And I love Stephanie because every time you talk to her, she elevates the conversation. I kind of bring it down, but that's a whole nother story.
No,
But then, you got out of Wausau, you got, Meg Ellison, absolutely phenomenal right there. Joe Gigante, you got him out there. And these are voices that don't necessarily cross over the entire state, but to have the focus solely on Southeast Wisconsin, and I got a lot of love for Milwaukee. I'm from Milwaukee, but we need to have more of the overall state and then try to build something together. Again, a strong voice. Speaking about strong voices, if you've ever seen Orlando Owens speaking, that's a trip.
Yeah, hi Orlando. I wanted to say one thing for you do see I put that up there what Sarah Ann said. Billboard at the entrance of hometown in Port Washington, strong area. We need to start competing on their turf too. We need to start we need money, we need some organization. We have to go where they are. And the school board candidates got completely lost in all the focus on the Supreme Court race. I think there was almost no attention given to school board candidates, just very little. And I think that can't happen again.
Okay, Rachel's saying Erickson and Kincaid won.
Grafton won, good.
Okay.
Kincaid won. Erickson is not good in Cedarburg.
Just give an update on the state Senate race. It's still holding 93% in, and Dan Canota leads by only 723 votes. And it's been like that for quite a while now, so I'm not sure what we're waiting for. I hope it's not Brown Deer. Orlando, welcome.
Hey, how you all doing? Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can. What's your perspective on how things went tonight?
Well, I get to be last, so I get to hear all the comments. I got Cliff Notes. Wow. Sad day. On the top, and we'll see how it, matriculates down as far as local races. I think I was listening to Dan O'Donnell and 11:30, 11:20. Their commentary, they just finished. Listen to you guys. I was trying to do both in my lower level chamber, and you all gave some great insight, and I don't think I can disagree with much, because it was. We're at that moment now that we definitely, I think all ideas are on the table. I think that we have to look at, definitely the abortion issue. Mm-hmm. I think you have to look at it from the standpoint of, I'm one who just doesn't believe that issue moves people to vote against us. I think what may very well could happen is that it may move people not to vote, who are conservative, maybe leaning. They may decide not to vote. I think there needs to be a charismatic figure from the church who's able to articulate a way how Christians and how believers engage government, that we were always counsel to men and women who were, in government. We need to have a theologian to really break that down on what is our role as believers. If Jessica and where you all are saying, and what Dan O'Donnell and Mark Belling, all the things that Dan Kelly, I'll get there. But as far as the issue of abortion, we need to have a better theological Christian or believer understanding of what is actually our role, our faith in government. How do we impact it, and where do we need to express it, and how do we express it? And I don't think we've done a really good job of, I think we're clear what the Bible says. We're clear. But also the Bible asks us to engage in government, engage in, this process and education and curriculum and voting, right? So we have to find a way in which theologians and people led by faith and led by God that explains What is our expectation? Do we have an unrealistic expectation of elected officials who very well may not be believers themselves, or who are just like, seeing me, Christmas, Easter as resurrection, and Christmas, right? Mother's Day. I'm sorry, it was a Mother's Day. They're not that Christian led. I think it also speaks to how we as a conservative movement, we truly have to embrace the big tent. And are we willing to lose the faith coalition, or are we able to explain in a way that someone who's credible, they can say, yeah, our job is to advise, is to consent or advise or not give consent, or to push the envelope as far as we can to put it to the people. There are things that that the faith, we as faithful people have to understand that the world is going to do, with our support or not. They're going to do it, and our job is to stand against it, but also to operate within it from the standpoint of we still got to deal with people. Not saying we condone it, but we have to be able to say, okay, I don't support what you do, but the same way I have to somehow work with this murderer, I got to also work with this young lady or this gentleman who supported abortion in a way that's functional. And I think that these are deeper theological questions that we don't have theologians who are really embrace this conversation. Again, not trying to condone abortion or homosexuality as far as marriage is concerned. If that's your thing, if that's a problem you may have, but I think we have to have a discussion. That's one issue. I think Jessica talked about, and I think Dan O'Donnell is going to talk about, many issues that we didn't do, right?
Yeah.
Dan Kelly, we have to decide, and I think I may have mentioned this on you guys' broadcast before, that we have to determine what is most electable as a candidate and who is most conservative. And these two people may not be necessarily the same people, or they may not be the same candidate for the type of race. Mm-hmm. We have to be able as a party to determine that, and that comes from Brian Schimming, from the party, so-called, and I like Brian, but me and Brian, we don't always see eye to eye, which is conservatives are, because we are all thinking people. We're free thinkers, and I wouldn't expect anybody to agree with me 100% besides myself, which I also question myself sometimes, because I reserve the right to be wrong and to say, okay, yeah, that was probably wrong. That's not the best thing. I can revisit that again. But I think we have to determine a strategy, what is most electable and what is most conservative. In conservative districts, the most electable person is probably the most conservative. Statewide, probably not. Donald Trump, for example, wasn't the most conservative candidate that ran for president, but he was the most electable, which are two different candidates that possibly may have two different characteristics. We have to come as a party to be able to articulate that in a way that our leader, Brian Schimming, should be able to say, okay, let me have while we're touring about getting out to vote early, we have fractions that are not coming together. We have to be able to say, okay, what's the fractions about? And I don't think we have, instead of, taking we need to have a, let me just be quiet and just don't do nothing tour. How about that? How about, we call them listening tours, but let's really listen and like, okay, let's go to a healing tour of like, what's the beef tour? Where's the beef tour? What do we have the difference with the Patriot groups and the GOP group? And then also the conservative who's not affiliated to none of the groups. Who, I had a chairman who wrote a few months ago, I don't think he minds because it was posted on Facebook, but it was in Barron County that over 50% of a conservative district didn't vote. Yeah. I think I heard Vicki McKenna today say that I thought it was 100,000. She put out a number. Maybe she was kind of just talking too quick. We said 400,000 hunters didn't vote.
We need to find out why people aren't voting. Now, because right now I could easily, I'm going to open up my wine very soon. Okay, waiting. But I'm ready to, but I'm very, very sad. I worked, I'm really happy I got with Ozaukee, because with Ozaukee County, There's some things we did well, but on the other hand, school board candidates lost. There's various reasons, and that's what's kind of weird, where Dan Kelly won, Dan Knodel won, and we lost some of our school board candidates. So we've got to start digging in and finding out why. And frankly, we need funding. We need money.
Scarlett, if I can, I just want to finish this segment, if I could, Scarlett. I just want to catch up because I know you guys. I want to catch up. I think also that Mark Belling made a great point that how in the world, and this is something that we have to come to some grips with as a movement, how in the world the referendums for law enforcement are moving forward, but the candidates that actually would support that aren't moving forward. You know, how do we have, and this is something we have to really realize, and I don't have a problem with Black engagement, Hispanic engagement, young people engagement, but clearly they're not voting for us. There's a messaging issue there. We're not connecting with them because they voted for the referendum. I'm thinking that Belling said is breaking toward yes. But how do you don't vote for the law enforcement and, you know, protector candidate?
It's as simple as the D or the R behind your name.
Okay, how about this, Orlando? I went to some debates, and the last debate I was at, Dan Knodel, he's the Democrat he was running against. She sounded like she was like, fund the police. She was blaming Republicans for the crime, claiming they didn't fund the police enough. Believe it or not, he was running as the tough on crime. Look at Janet Prolisewicz's ads. She was tough on crime, and she was portraying Dan Kelly as the monster who lets rapists go free and child molesters.
Right.
Let me talk to this point as well too. There needs to be an understanding of a strategy, and I know they cannot coexist in the same world. But there's no need for the third party groups to run the same type of ads that the campaign is running. If you're going to say, and Dan Kelly said, you know, well, he doesn't feel he should go after some of these issues that were questionable about Janet. Let the third party groups do that. They didn't do it. So there has to be, you know, in an ideal world that, you know, both worlds don't collide, that, okay, well, we'll talk about Dan, the campaign. But then the third party, then we'll do the attacking.
Yeah.
That you can't do.
I agree with you. I agreed crime needed to be inserted into this, but I mean, the campaign's a third party focus 100% on crime.
All they talked about.
And
all they talked about.
When you think about it, I mean, a Supreme Court justice doesn't sentence people to prison. And so, yeah, maybe a little bit. But again, I want to bring it back to my other point. They needed to discuss Act 10 and how property taxes would go up, the loss of voter ID, the loss of the legislative maps, which is going to make it that much harder for us to keep our 2 Republican congressional seats. Those issues were things that I think they should have pounded harder rather than just crime.
And I agree with you, Jim. I think there clearly was a miscalculation of who was going to do what. Like if Dan Kelly campaign is about Dan Kelly, then the third parties, to all the points you just mentioned, Jim, should have been brought up by them then.
Yeah.
No need to run the same type of ad if you're missing this area over here.
Right. All of the rapists and all the rapist ads, I think, just started blending together. Even I was having trouble tracking which name did what and who's doing what, because, you know, I just want to give a quick update here. 94% of the vote in, and Knodel is up by 500 and some points or votes. Wow. So really close yet in that race.
It's very close. It's very close. If Dan pulls this off, it's going to be razor thin. And again, there's got to be postmortems done. We have to figure out, we can't just walk away from this and say, it's because of Trump, or it's because of abortion, or it's because of this. It's going to be a lot of different things. And we've got to look at that and think, here's our list, and here's what we need to do differently, better, this, that. There's a lot of work to be done in Wisconsin. I'm new to a lot of this. So relatively, I started with year 2020, and I've really gotten involved. there's something going on in Wisconsin that I don't quite understand. There are groups that have had power for a while that are fighting at some level that I don't even understand. There seems to be two people who we go to for all the money, and everyone's kind of waiting around for these two people to give money. And frankly, I'm sick of it. We've got to, as a grassroots, the people that are out there every day, those of us here, we've got to, I think we've got to get more involved, and we have to start, really just, and I don't know how to figure this out, but there's got to be something different. This law, Kelly, it says that we have lost and lost and lost. Ron Johnson won, and he's a great guy and a different candidate, but we've had a big losing streak. We have to do something different.
Let me ask this here, because you talk about postmortem, and I think that's long overdue. Yeah. Where was the postmortem after the 2022 election cycle? There's never been a healing from the schism that happened between the Rantham supporters, the Kleefisch supporters, the Michael supporters, the Michael supporters that were like, you need to get in line. We want, end of story. There's never been that, okay, let's get back together. Where are you offended? How can we patch things up? How can we make things right? How can I make you whole? And there's never been that. So in some way, I'm kind of not surprised about what happened here. And honestly, if this election cycle, Orlando and I have talked about this, if this election cycle had been a little longer for today's, election, it would have probably be far worse. But instead, we spend more time, and this is the thing that's frustrated me for a year and a half, almost two. I see conservatives bashing other conservatives, patriots bashing other patriots, more than they're willing to put in the work or fight against the left.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've had two people come up to me over the last couple months and get mad because I'm not defending them. It's like, I'm not getting in the middle of your fight. Handle your business, fight it out, and then, you know what? Do like we did when we were kids. Have your fight, go play basketball afterwards, your best friends. We don't do that. Instead, we hold on to these grudges. And I think Jessica said it best during the 22 cycle. Primaries are where enemies are made. And dear God, this is ridiculous. But
boy,
it is.
I worked for Rebecca Kleefisch, volunteered. And when she lost, my heart was really in it. Guess what? Yeah. I had a meeting with Michaels and was there. How can I help? Supported Doro. When she lost, I went straight. How can I help Dan Kelly? Because it's really easy. Here's the formula. We've got, as conservatives, I don't want to become a Marxist state, a Marxist country. I want my children to be free, and I don't give a damn about my feelings got hurt. Who cares? It's politics. It's not personal. Your feelings.
I think this.
Move on. We got to save this country.
I'll say this. I think the role of the chairman goes beyond winning elections. I think the chairman has to be always concerned about the movement. And that person has to be able to say, that's going to hurt us. Mm-hmm. We have to be able to say what's in bounds and what's out of bounds.
Yeah.
And say that's going to hurt us. And we need to have someone who's strong enough to say, I can't co-sign that. I think also this, I think there are coalitions that we used to talk about quite often that we don't talk about anymore because I don't think we've lost a lot of credibility with them. As I will constantly talk about the boys in the back of the woods. And I also will talk about our data. Our data for Sidekick. And, no one talks about this. I don't have a problem saying it because I've done the research. The data is mostly voter information, voter turnout, voter past voter data. I've always advocated, and hadn't always, but over this past year and a half, I've advocated for consumer data. Yeah. I need to know that you bought a Chevy pickup truck last year that's red. I didn't know you got a hunting license and a snowmobile permit and a RV permit, because more than likely you are the person that we need to align with, that we don't have a real good relationship with you. I think Sidekick is a platform. Sidekick doesn't do data gathering. They use most of the information for the RNC trust. Now I'm saying this stuff on live, radio, TV. It's fine. I guess, it's what
You're
it
right.
is.
I'm gonna, yeah.
The data needs to be not so much voter data. Any of us can get voter data. I don't need to know that you voted 2-3 years. I need to know the person who voted for Trump, who voted maybe for, let's say, Ron Johnson every 6 years, but doesn't vote anywhere else because he doesn't. And let's be clear, we know the 5 to 6 reasons why conservatives hate Republican elected officials. They don't think their vote counts. They think most of these politicians are liars and cheaters. They don't hold their word. And they don't fight for them. And also we have to look at the makeup of what is a conservative. We don't like groups, even from the college ranks all the way up to the adult ranks. We don't like to be part of anything as far as
fiercely independent. Yes, sir.
That's what we are. We don't like nobody tell us to get behind a candidate. We rather arrive there on our own. So let me get there when I get there. And also, we hate government. We don't like government at all. So it's already hard enough to get us engaged to go vote if we don't think government really is a good thing in the first place. I've said this over and over again. I say it on your platform right now, Jim and Jessica. We need to push the policy and not the politician. Push the policy.
Well, and I think you're right. I think you can do. I think sometimes it's both. I think there's a policy, but I think that it's rare. But I think that there are people that just they get very excited if they trust them, if they believe. I think Ron Johnson is one of those people. Ron Johnson is someone who he was able to capture, like, people just genuinely trust him. He's been able to build up because he's told the truth. There's just something about him that he's earned. He's taken hard
Let's be clear. Ron Johnson is a jerk, and people love their jerk because he can't be bought. He gonna tell the truth, and that's a jerk. And a lot of people's that's what people like, that he gonna tell it straight. That's what they like about it, because
he builds value doing that. He builds value doing that.
Most guys in the back of the woods, most people is about integrity. They like somebody. If I like it or don't like it, if you tell me the straight truth, I'll process it and I'll deal with it. But tell me the straight truth.
He tells the truth, but he has a love for this country too. And when he's telling you the truth, where it's coming from. And I think that because that's what I see in him. He's not afraid to stand up, but he also has a sincere love for this country, and he's very concerned about it, as most people are. I also think what if people like us right here, the 4 of us adding on, maybe we need to start a political action committee. Maybe we need to start, maybe we have something, and if no one's going to listen to us, then maybe we need to start doing something on our, forming our own coalition, that's going to bring the change. Because frankly, I am here, my husband's business is here. As much as I would love to dream of going to Florida, I'm here. And I've got 5 children. I need Wisconsin to work. I am fighting for everything for Wisconsin, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Let me say this. I say Ron Johnson's a jerk in a good way, because he doesn't back down. He doesn't take, I
think we got that, Orlando.
I work for the guy.
Good save.
Oh, he called your boss a jerk, but he's a no nonsense dude. He don't have to do it. And that means I'm gonna tell you what it is: straight chaser, no straight, no chaser. I'm gonna tell you what it is, and that people like it is refreshing. As the only candidate that ran statewide that won, I lost my general, I lost my primary, which it is what it is. But to get the endorsement of the state party and the patriot groups, I can tell you that people still love America. And when you have that America first type of let's get fired up for America, people respond. From the Patriot group to the GOP group to the guy who's not affiliated at all, they still love America. And we need to find candidates who still speaking and tap into that vein. Do you still love America? And do you still love freedom?
Yeah, I think you're right. think you're right. I there's I think that there's good news. What you said with the I mean, when you look at the referendum, that the people voted yes for that, but voted for the wrong candidate, and so finding that
Low information.
that the low information and the candidate, they didn't connect with the candidate. They wanted the policy, but they didn't connect with the candidate, or they allowed themselves to prioritize something else more. There's and the money and the messaging, and so how do we get beyond that? I think the culture too. I think the fact that I feel like for so long in Wisconsin, Republicans have just given up on Milwaukee and giving up on the Hispanic community, which I think is so wrong. I would love to see more in the Black and Hispanic communities of Milwaukee. I just said this to someone, and they told me it's not going to work. Give up, Scarlett. And I'm like, I'm not giving up. I was born in Milwaukee. I know they are socially still conservative. They are more conservative than they know.
This is where me and you, Scarlett, gonna disagree. The three minorities. Well, Jim's a minority because he's Polish, so he's a minority too. So come on in, Jim.
Yeah.
But
Thanks.
this is where you and I are gonna disagree. I think we still need to do Latino and Black outreach. But I will tell you, from the number of people who push a Marxist, I hate America, and America is the most racist country, it is overwhelming from the pulpit. And I think I heard Jessica talk about this tonight. Like, what are the churches? The churches still push they hate America. I mean, look at Uncle Tom too. When they start to open up the box of, Martin Luther King Jr., not Daddy, but Jr., how his ties to the Marxist idea. Again, you take a population of people who were, second class, and it's easy to lump on to, let's say, the grievance, mantra. And I think a lot of Black people were misconceived and misled by this Marxist communist idea that was cloaked under freedom and equality and equity.
Let me throw this here at you guys. I'm a big proponent of talking about culture. And I got a couple of things in the hopper I'm trying to work on personally. But I mean, when I talk culture, I'm talking things like movies, music, books, comic books, doesn't matter. I mean, it sounds trivial, but
no,
that's where the left have really infiltrated things. But I also am a big believer in slaying one dragon at a time. Again, I'm going through my weight loss journey. I'm feeling phenomenal, but I got to quit smoking. Bad habit, I know. But once I hit my goal, and I'm almost there, I got my next dragon. One of the things I'm thinking about here in Wisconsin is, where are our conservative media outlets? I mean, yes, we have talk radio, and I don't want to dog that out. And I'd like to get Jim's perspective on this. How do we grow something like Wisconsin right now, and other, groups or whatever, to not just be a flash in the pan? Because over the last 10 years, I have seen conservative media on social media pop up, disappear. I have seen social media, podcasts pop up, disappear. There's no longevity right now. Jim, I'd love to get your perspective, because honestly, like I said, I'm digging what you guys do. I know somebody's going to bash me on that, and please, if you're going to bash me, please do. Somebody else.
I think you're absolutely correct, and that's something that Jessica and I have really been working on. Matter of fact, I asked that very same question to Diane Hendricks through a surrogate tonight, because I wanted to know her perspective on conservative media, because Empower Wisconsin is now gone, and with the exception of the MacGyver Institute, which does terrific reporting, but they do more of the analysis and the long form reports. It comes down, like Orlando said, it comes down to money. And ideally, I've already created 12 smaller Wisconsin right now throughout Wisconsin, like Eau Claire, La Crosse, up north, and we have those websites. And we need to hire journalists, because we'd like to get these local school board races throughout the state, town board meetings, village board meetings, the local happenings happening, again, with the conservative perspective, but it comes down to money. I will tell you, Jessica and I don't make any money doing this. The only thing we've been getting some good donations in, which have been very helpful. just to run it, because both her and I, we work 40-hour jobs and we do this on top of it. But we don't even have money to pay journalists through the state to do it. You've got to be able to pay a journalist $50,000 a year or whatever.
Right.
So it's going to cost money, and we've tried talking to some big donors that need to realize how important it is. I want to bring up, I've talked about this at some of the county events that we've been to. If people want to Google, it's called Civic Media. It's being financed by a tech millionaire. And they're going around right now buying up small radio stations all throughout Wisconsin. Just in the last year, they've acquired, I believe, 17 radio stations, and they're going to be putting on their, Up North News, Wisconsin right now, or Wisconsin.com news, and they're going to be just, bombarding the state through these radio stations with their liberal biased media. So it's really, we feel like it's just basically us against these tech millionaires and their companies right now.
Well, and so I do a lot on Twitter. I've been able to grow that influencer base. So I think there's a lot of room there. We need to be influencers. We need to have podcasts, and not just, we could have political podcasts. You could talk even just about the culture. You notice Candace Owens always brings in, she talks about pop culture and she says, because it's important. We can talk about the Gwyneth Paltrow ski trial. It's hilarious. We can be funny sometimes. We can do more than we're very serious and gloom and doom. But I think
that's why Steven Crowder is so successful. He brings humor into it too.
Yeah. So I think that there's, let's talk about school board issues. I was just telling Jim and Jessica, I want to start doing some other small thing where I'm talking about what's happening in the schools, in the curriculum. And, I think that we could find more people in Wisconsin. We could do how about sports? How about what's going on in sports, but have our own kind of conservative channel, and we'll talk about different things. And I honestly think it could be very successful. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing. There's 11:30 WISN, and then there's Meg's show, and then that's it. That's all there is. So we need to be more. We could do some things that are interesting. What were you talking about? How about true crime? How about a true crime show? Like there's so many different things that we could do. I think we could fill a channel all day with some ideas.
Well, I think we definitely have to look at, from a business approach, how do you promote and market any product? You get it out there, right? If we're not putting out the conservative, viewpoint or the position, this is not going anywhere. We're assuming. So one of the things I've learned is that, Democrats assume they got the black vote, and they don't really have to work for it. They do just enough to get it. But you know what? Conservatives do the same thing. We assume we got to vote in Waukesha, in Milwaukee, in Washington. We assume we got it, but we're not really working for it like that. We're not doing the things like putting forth, candidates, and also having a media, messaging system and a machine out there to go and push out that message. Even when you don't have candidates running. Well, to your point, Scarlett, how we're doing locally on local issues to keep people constantly involved and not tune out and then tune in and then tune out. We don't have a consistency there. We want to build buildings and have a consistent campaign office, but we don't want to have consistent campaign messaging and lines of communication.
But I think to Jim's point, though, let's just say there's a channel and you have all these different things. It's hard to do unless you have volunteers that are cool to not being paid. And I think that's part of the problem. How far are you guys? You guys are at a goal. I think, was it buy me a coffee or something? I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah. We set it up 300 donations at like $10 a month would help fund us and keep us going forward, because Jessica's lost income. I've lost income, obviously, because of what we're doing.
Right.
And so we need to supplement that a little bit. We both have families we have to take care of,
So where are you guys
our
at
operational costs. I think we've got about half of that. I think we're about 150 right now.
I'm going to make a commitment to make sure that I get on that here within the next day. Okay, I'm going to put it out there right now, because it's easy to talk about it. it's another thing to actually be about it,
Right.
and I want to support the things that I actually believe in. So I'm making that commitment right now.
No, appreciate that.
And I think, like you mentioned, Diane Hendricks, we know the Uline and other donors, and I think um, maybe we can find maybe there's some donors out there that let's take a chance and invest in something that's like long term. I don't know, but you have to come up with a business plan. You have to come up with, you can't, there has to be something put together. And what's the long term goals? I think some political action committees. I think it's time to go to those
Great idea.
And like I said, we've got the Uline Hendricks that have been committed to Wisconsin and invested heavily in Wisconsin. And I think instead of throwing money at consultants, political consultants, that's what I was trying to say, that let's stop doing what isn't working and let's try something else. And I would say to those donors, like, let's try something else. Let's do something different that comes at it in a whole different way. And that kind of, I think the political consultant class has there's great people. But I think we've got to come at it a different way. It can't just be a campaign. It can't be during campaign season, drop and then come back at it. We've got to think of something unique. And
tomorrow's Wednesday, and we got to have this thing together. We got to get out here and we got to put this thing together, because clearly what we've been doing hadn't been working. And again, I mean, touring statewide, man, I seen a lot that I just didn't know, and it's so there. Those Trump voters, those voters who are still mainstream conservatives, you have to have someone who's, I guess, to bring those fractions together. I think also we got to have, to what Ed said earlier, and I think I tapped on it too, we got to have a healing moment to say, you know what? Yeah, that those campaigns may have went too far, and some didn't go far enough, and I get it. But you can't go in as if you know it all.
Nope.
Until the people we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and that don't make any sense. Stop it.
Because where was the mea culpa? Where was the apology?
You had to figure it out. We would have figured it out. So stop acting like as if you got to figure it out because you don't.
Nope.
Where was the My thing was, like, where was the apology for, like, when Trump came and called Clayfish, a communist sympathizer and everything else? That's one of the reasons you didn't have that unity after the fact.
Yeah.
You had a lot of people like myself, and I asked Tim Michels personally. I'm like, okay, I'm going to vote for you. No question about that. Help me advocate for you. The answer was subpar, which made it very hard for me to advocate for him. Other than, we don't want Tony Evers. That's the point, in Orlando, you touched on it. We need to have that. We didn't have it. And we need to have this going forward, because if this is what's going to happen, if this is what we're dealing with is the norm going forward. Oh, exactly.
Someone else raised that point on Trump earlier, that Trump started all this divisiveness in Wisconsin. And I mean, I felt it. I tried to keep my emotions out of it, but when he went and he attacked Clayfish on stage like that, that was kind of my turning point on Trump. I couldn't forgive him for that. Right. Slowly I'm coming back around, but it bittered me. And I was a full-blown, I've been to so many of his rallies, campaigns. My kids all wear his hats. I mean, we were a big Trump family, and he did that, and it just turned off every member of my family.
I mean, like, when somebody says something about your kid, that's a hard thing to come back from. It's a hard thing when the president of the United States is talking about your child, and then when some of the people in the Michael talking of it's hard. That's the no-go zone. Like, let's go after especially really young kids. Let's be able to call that out and say, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to reject that. I think take that lesson out of it. I think that we have to be able to come together. We have to
the postmortem, as you said earlier.
We need each other.
We do.
We need each other. There's one side of the equation that has the people. They have the votes. And there's another side of the equation, quite honestly, that has the resources and the money.
You're right.
They have to come together because you need one. You can't have one without the other. You can't have the money without the people, and the people, you can't have the people without the money to get the message out. So you're going to have someone say, you know what, we're going to come together. And I think there's a few figures that have the ability to do so. And you have to have someone who really has a humble type approach. I think some of the leadership we have right now is too blusterous. They think they know it because they've been around for too long, and they run their mouth and they got to figure it out. Like, shut up. You don't, because if you did, you would have used your influence to get this thing figured out.
Who do you think are figures that could bring people together?
Off top, I think Ron can bring some people together. I think he can bring some of the coalitions that he's developing now, and some he has already. He's shown a willingness to say, well, I want to talk to people outside of the general GOP. I want to talk to some of these other associations and these other groups as well, too. I think he has credibility there. I think you may have another state figure. I'll be very, very honest with you. I think it's hard to look statewide who has the credibility with, and I think we also need to break down, when we say grassroots, what are we saying? Grassroots GOP or grassroots patriots? Because I think these are two different people. These are two different people. So I saw when I went to these patriot groups, these are not the same people. And they're grassroots because grassroots means you get out here, you do these doors, you make these phone calls. These are not the same people I saw at the GOP as we can classify as grassroots. I think we need to better define, when you say grassroots, who are you talking about?
And I work with both those, especially with school board. I've spoke to grassroots patriot groups, and I've gone to I've grassroots GOP groups, and also there's also just kind of there's your grassroots. There's those who work in the 1848 Project and the AFP and other, like Moms for Liberty. So you've got there's a lot of different kinds, and there's a way you can do that if you listen. If you listen to what they're saying and their concerns, and you're honest, and you give them the respect that they deserve. Don't look at them like more, you're better, or what, because you're not.
Let me say this. I'm gonna just be the dude. I'm just gonna say it. Jim, when I ran statewide, and we've been very candid and very transparent about it
the whole way.
I didn't know there was a fraction between, and I'm just going to be, racial right now. There's a divide between the white collar white person and the blue collar white person.
Yeah,
I didn't know these worlds don't really come together like that.
And especially in the rural communities, when you get outside 40 miles outside of any major metropolitan area, Milwaukee, Madison, Oshkosh, Green Bay, the schism is huge.
The only time they kind of come into contact with each other, quite honestly, I believe through their activities. You'll see them together hunting. You might see them together on certain groups. They come together, but I didn't know it was a divide between the white collar and the blue collar. Like, they both think either they don't see eye to eye. And I think we don't talk about. Now, maybe it's just me because I'm fresh eyes walking in and say, I didn't know the boys who drive tractor at a tractor pool don't really go with the Kiwanis guys. I didn't know that. And when you see that, like, you clearly see that. Like, wow. The guy who goes to the mud races, who goes to snowmobiling, is not the same dude to go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting.
Yep.
Didn't know. But that means the tent is really big, right? So you need to have a big figure that can go into these places who hadn't burned their bridges, who's open to listen and willing to say, you know what, I didn't know that. So the attitude and demeanor of that person has to be someone who's willing to listen and say, I didn't know anything about hunting like that. I didn't know guns could do that. I didn't know there was a bear association. I didn't know that. And also go talk to the Kiwanis and talk to the chambers also to say, okay, but you need to have someone who can transcend the groups.
Well, I think we're kind of I'm looking at the four of us, and there's Jessica. I think we're kind of some of those people that we operate in all of these different. My dad's a Marine. I have hunters in my family. My mom is a huge Patriot group. I go into Patriot groups, but then live in Mequon. And all of you, I know it's similar. We operate in all these kind of different spheres. We're not in just sort of one area. So I think that's what makes our discussion really cool and unique is we have an understanding of all these different groups, and I guess to use the woke identities, but all of these different folks in the GOP. And and I think we were able to I can have a conversation with any of those.
But we're grown folk, though. That's the thing. We can have these conversations, and even if we disagree on some minutia, we can still be like, yeah, but I appreciate what you're telling me. I see where you're coming from, and that's where some of the schism happens, where it's like, okay, you don't agree with me 5% of the time, then you're my enemy. It's like, dude, I agree with you 95% of everything.
Yeah.
Jim, what you got up here, Jim? What you showing here?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick update. I don't know if it's zoomed in enough, but still want to show you that Dan Kelly is down by a solid 10 points with 88% in. And the Kenosha, now the state Senate race, 96% in. And let me just do a quick refresh. And it looks like it's still 500 votes.
Is that enough for a recount?
Yeah, I think is that 500? Is that still 550 votes roughly?
She would have to request a recount. Yeah.
So, Jim, can you explain to this? Because I've heard this tonight a few different times about having a supermajority. Do we really have a supermajority? Because the Senate, I thought we needed both houses to have a supermajority.
We would need a supermajority in both houses to override an Evers veto, is my understanding. Now, if Dan Knodel wins tonight, we'll keep that super majority in the state Senate, but we don't have it in the assembly yet. We're 2 seats short. Right. So that's why in 2 years, the next election is going to be a big deal. If we can get those 2 seats, then we would have a true super majority to override Evers.
So here's a thought that I want to get you guys' opinion on. What does I think here's a way to help get GOP voters. What do they do? Like, what have they done? And I know, Evers is the governor. Yeah. But there are still things that we could do, even if it's symbolic. I think there are ways to send the message that we hear you. We're here to fight. We're not here to just go along, get along. This isn't the good old boys club. We don't collect a check and go. I personally, I'll put it out there. I'll say it. I want to see more. I want to see stuff done. And when it comes in education, it's a big zero. There's DPI walks in and says, hey, give me my check. And we say, here you go. There you go. I want to see committee hearings where we are going after DPI and saying, why are you teaching this to kids? And if they're confused as to what I'm talking about, I'm happy. I'll go there and I will show it to you. I will show you the crap that is in our schools. It's straight off the DPI website, or go to my Twitter page, but it's there and they're never held accountable ever. So I would like to see accountability. Why should people go and vote for Republicans? What are they doing for you? How are they representing you?
I don't think we can get there yet, in my humble opinion, Scarlett, until we go and listen to what their concerns are. Well, I had a pastor friend of mine tell me this one time. You show me a man or woman's checkbook, and I can tell you where their interests are. And so we do the research to find out what moves people, then we can't expect to draft legislation or to be active in things that move them. I'm against critical race theory, but if that's not your thing, then why am I sending you a critical race theory flyer? If I'm against abortion, but you may have more of and I think we also have to recognize that Republicans have a really strong libertarian streak that we have to acknowledge the fact that certain things just don't move people. We just like, hey, that's you, man. Do you? So don't expect everybody to get riled up but until we go and listen, and I think you said it very succinctly, Scarlett. You said we go listen to people and stop talking. They'll tell you what moves them.
I think what moves people, it's the proficiency scores. They're abysmal. I think that, and how that's affecting our workforce. And how for business owners that they can't find people to work, and when they do, there are graduates out of high school that can't balance a checkbook. They can't add and subtract. They're not good readers. They write like they text. Are you home? Like the R in the U.
I think that applies to certain people. And this is where we have to drill down deeper. Like my degree is in business, but I have an emphasis on marketing. Like we need to figure out, sure, that's for a parent, maybe a taxpayer who's concerned about where tax dollars are going. But I'm just kind of a guy who's just kind of going along. I don't know if I'm really moved by the educational issue like that. And I hear Republicans, and I think there are good-hearted Republicans who believe the long view of America needs to be done through education. And I support it, in particular, in the idea of school choice. But if you look at the Black and brown people who use school choice, they don't vote for school choice. They vote against it.
So I know.
So why do we as conservatives always we hold up school choice as a way to get into Black and brown people? Like, hey, right now, Jim, and you may be able to research this, we don't have a list of families currently right now who are receiving the voucher. Tell me, why don't we have any from the Badger Institution or the MacGyver Institution? Why don't we have a working list of families that receive the voucher that we can directly market to them and say, if you like the education your child is getting, why aren't you voting for that education?
Really good idea. That's a really good
Scarlett,
idea.
do you have any input on that? Are there lists available?
No, there are, and we could. That's a really good idea, and it made me think of. I just watched this last week, where when Ron DeSantis signed in the school choice, behind him are all the families and several things before that. It's always where I've seen politicians been successful. They are surrounded by Black, brown, different families. And he's signing this legislation into law, or holding round tables, and listening sessions, and
tell you why,
online.
So I've been part of the movement for over 17 years. And School Choice Wisconsin at one time did an open record request to drill down who were receiving the voucher for school choice. The left made such a big deal about it that the open records request for School Choice Wisconsin under Jim Bender, who's recently left, went from this big to this big to this big till they stopped the open records request to figure out who actually got the voucher. Wow. Because the liberals made a big stink about they're asking personal information. And you ask most Black parents and Latino parents in the city of Milwaukee who received the voucher, I've heard this from Howard Fuller. They couldn't tell you if their kid went to a public school or a choice school.
So can the state legislature do something about that? Can they get that list?
I don't know why we shouldn't try.
I know. Like I said, DPI needs funding. The funding comes from the state. That is in the purview of the state legislative body. So why not say, you want to check? Give us the list.
If you want this scholarship and your kid, and I do believe there are different stages that this argument may be more profound. I think the families who have the most, let's say, openness to it may be the earlier stages, elementary and middle. By the time they get to high school, most of those families have figured it out as far as how they financially will make it. They're not compelled for the scholarship or not. But again, they could still be under an income barrier that they're not getting higher job pay. What we got here, Jimmy? What you got, Jimmy? What you got?
Yeah, I just want to give a quick update here that right now with 98% in, Kenodel's still leading by about 550 points. Someone is commenting here that all the votes left are in Waukesha County. That's a comment. I don't know that to be true, but that's what we're being told.
Yes.
Also, that same user is saying that Habish said that she doesn't think the numbers are there for her. So, I mean, so far it's looking good for Knodel.
So what does that mean, Jim, that we had, if he holds on, I think I heard Jessica talk about subpoena, we can impeach. What does that mean as a strategy?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what Knodel was talking about in the last few campaign stops, was that with the Senate having the supermajority, they can actually, I guess, impeach elected officials. Like he brought up Chisholm at an event I was at. Again, I don't know the exact legalities of that, and if he can, and even if it's a good idea to, I've questioned. You got to be careful. We're the ones that started the drumbeat on Chisholm, but we also, I mean, remember Chisholm's been good, like in terms of cops, and we could get a lot worse than him. So we get rid of Chisholm. What if we get in one of these crazy Soros woke DAs that go back and open up all police shootings for the last 30 years? And
so your concern, Jim, is that if given the electorate in Milwaukee County, the people could vote for something worse than DHS.
Oh, they will.
Think you got right now with the way the climate is, I think it's very possible.
Absolutely. I mean, you take a look at what's going on with Trump right now. The indictment, the arraignment, and everything else. If he wins the presidency in 2024, Republicans hold the Congress, both chambers. They're going to take that and they're going to run with it, and that's going to be the norm. And there are people that think, we're in this, cold / hot civil war going on throughout the country. And God, we are so bifurcated. I mean, as a nation, yes, you can see it all over the place. As a state, not only are we bifurcated as a state, but we're bifurcated as a party.
So how do we get, because we're at this point, 11 o'clock, we're at the postmortem, we're at that stage now. Like, how do we get Milwaukee, right? I'm the chair of Milwaukee North, right? And I can tell you from my experience that I guess Milwaukee held at 30%. We're going to do some things differently in my branch level. That I'm glad you showed this, Jim, because I was about to say, how did the dads of Tulsa do?
Yeah, that's good. Let's go over. I was just noticing. So it looks like Sarah Green beat Brash out of the Court of Appeals. And then all three ballot measures had a yes. Those went through.
Are those non-binding, or what was the story on that? Because I thought one or two of them at least were non-binding.
I think two of them are binding, and one is not. I think the welfare one is just advisory, and I think the other two are binding.
And I can tell you on my Milwaukee ballot, we had an abortion question.
Yeah. That's just to drive in the vote, right?
I would wonder how that broke.
Wouldn't surprise me.
So David Bowen won, older person.
These are local races here.
Those are all the local races. Yeah. All right.
I wonder if the Tulsa dads pulled it out. If any of them made it.
Oh yeah, Scarlett, can you find out about the Tulsa dads?
Yeah, let's look it up.
Because I think what has to happen, I think Scarlett made a bigger point, which is like, what do we do now? And I think Jim, you remember, and Scarlett, you remember this, and Ed, you do too. Before we had was it 2022, we had a midterm that we won a bunch of school board races, a bunch of county board races.
Sir. Yes, sir.
What did we do then that was different? And I think that's when
Spring of 21. Spring of 21. Yes, sir.
Wolf had burst on the scene, and all the moms were getting energized.
Yes, there was a lot of energy. It's died down considerably. The masks really energized, and I think to keep that momentum going, it hasn't. It's been a struggle for those of us who are in this, that it's hard to get, just like what you said, like to not connect the proficiency rates, the depression, the anxiety to what's going on in schools, the curriculum, the fact that if anything, what you can say about the ideological schools, it's much easier to teach a kid to be a social justice warrior than it is to teach them how to read and how to be competent at math. That's hard work. And I think it's much easier to just sort of, especially with the 2 years or more with COVID and kids isolated in their rooms, I think rather than doing the hard work, unfortunately, districts have settled for let's have kids feel good and let's do the social kind of justice thing. And it's a very hard thing what's happening in schools, and the decline in the ACT scores, the SAT scores, that our kids aren't as competitive going into college. If I could tell you the horror stories of what's happening to the kids that their first year college, they're quietly dropping out and moving back home, it's high.
So my question would be, how does this? Go ahead, Ed. I'm sorry.
I want to throw this here because, Jim, I've never met you, and I actually finally learned how to say your last name, Provarchek.
Yeah.
Like I've been struggling with that one for I don't know. Orlando can tell you it's been months. I'm like, God, I hope Jim doesn't beat me.
I can't do it. I just call him Jim.
I don't expect anyone to pronounce it.
Well, no, it's like I only speak one language, English, and that's barely. But to Scarlett's point, one of the things that I've noticed, there's this demonization of masculinity. I'm gonna bring up a name here that a lot of conservatives don't like, Charlie Sykes. He often would talk about this war against boys, and he was right on that. You can criticize him in the later years, but here's the thing. I think at this point in time, we need to have this more masculine. And I'm not saying this domineering, oppressive 1950s. I'm going to wake up at 2 a.m, beat you. None of that. No. Excuse me. But this, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to lead a family? What does it mean to, I don't know, have self-discipline? And Jim as a cop, and myself as a Marine, Orlando, the son of a Marine. And I think, Scarlett, you have some Marine influence, don't you?
Yes. My dad was a Marine. My brother's Marine.
There we go. We got some Marine Corps all around. What do we do to influence that? Because really, if we want to make effect change, you have to start small. Smallest level is the nuclear family. And maybe I'm off base on this, but why do you think individuals like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, why do you think these individuals are so popular? Because they're talking about, masculinity. And I know it sounds kind of weird, like I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but really at the end of the day, one of the biggest downfalls of our culture at this particular point is the fact that we don't have strong male role models. We want strong females, because strong females, what they do is they give us the opposite side, a whole, well-rounded person. This is where our opportunity to create culture and everything else. Jim, I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
I agree.
Wow. Yeah, that's you're right. I think Charlie Sykes, as much as annoyed by what he turned into, he was really a thought leader in his time, right? I think he's the one that actually created the term snowflake, if I remember right. I mean, we're talking, I don't remember, was this late 90s, early 2000s already? He was talking about this issue. He's absolutely right. And I have a son and 2 daughters, and I teach I notice a difference even how I interact with my son and versus my daughters, but I do try to encourage my son to, look out for women, look out for his sisters. Yeah. Even if the kids are in a fight, Luke is never allowed to raise his hands to the girls, even if they might be, smacking him around a little bit. He's never to hit a woman. And so I teach my kids those conservative values, and I think it came down to when it was okay for boys to start wearing, earrings and makeup and jewelry, and becoming feminine was okay. Yeah. So
I'm going to say I have one son, 4 daughters. My oldest son, I'm Hispanic, and so I think coming from an ethnic culture that has something to do with my dad. But I raised my son the same way. He never raised his voice to me ever. One time he spoke to me kind of harshly, and I started to cry because I was like, that was kind of. He's like, I'm so sorry, Bob. I'm so, because he only just had a little bit of inflection in his. He pays for every date, opens up the car doors.
Yeah.
Talks to the dad, and I raised him with the thought of, you need to, whatever you do when you get married and have children, you're the provider. Your wife needs to be able to have the option to stay home if she chooses to help raise kids, at least for a little while. Like, you are the provider. You need to have the income to take care of your family. And he's about to get married. He's in medical school, and those values just translated, and we've got to raise our boys to be men. He's a sweet kid who can shoot an AR-16. I think that there's a way to do that. You have the male figure who provides the balance, the mom, the dad working together. I have 4 very strong girls, but I feel like I'm in a constant battle with them to make it okay to be feminine. That you don't have to be, I am woman, hear me roar. Because that's all that, with my teenage daughters, that's all they came back with, like, oh yeah, I'm a woman. And this very negative attitude toward men that every day I had to deconstruct and say, no, not all men are like that. There are good men in your life.
Right.
And you know what? Thank God we have men like you, Jim, that were police officers, that were in the military, that we have fathers. Thank God we have masculine men that are willing to lay their life on the line and protect us. Without that, where are we?
So I think big ups to how you raise your son. My bigger issue, quite honestly, Scarlett, is how we raise these women, these girls, because they need to be able to identify what is masculinity and what is, I think, and there's a cultural thing, Jim, that, our fathers and grandfathers, we as a society, we gave maybe the wrong or just one impression of what masculinity looks like. And then it became, became jaded or overly cooked. And now we have to be able to say, men don't have to rule a woman. And also a woman, to your point, Scarlett, you don't have to let him know that I am woman. Because if he's a real man, he respects you. You don't have to remind him. Mm-hmm. We need to be, and these things go back even biblically so,
yes,
that we need to be able to teach, like, what is healthy relationship? Because I believe, honestly, I am a living witness that part of this abortion issue is not even about the aborting the fetus. It is that a man is trying to tell me what to do. And I'm a living witness to it. Even in my own family, when I hear the women talk, they know that the fetus is not good, and that's wrong. But they have a bigger disdain for a man trying to tell them what to do.
My wife has the perfect solution to that. And it's funny because in my home, I really don't care about a lot of things. You want to decorate this way? Cool. You want to do this? Cool. The only thing I care about is my makeshift studio in my basement. Not my mom's basement, my basement. It's funny because when I do say something, then people know you need to listen because I don't care about so many different things. But I remember her saying something and it hit me like a ton of bricks. You may be the head of the house, but I'm the neck. And the neck goes where the head goes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude, that's so next level. But the thing is, though, you have to be, and I'm reminded of this Japanese proverb. And I love this because, well, I don't know how much more real you can get with it. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Jordan Peterson expounds upon this when he talks about an individual who can't fight, who can't defend, who can't protect his family. That's not virtuous.
Well, I'll take you this, Ed, that we have fallen away from faith. So
yes.
we need to stop leaning as if, everybody's church, because everybody ain't churched. I believe, again, when you hear the argument for a woman's right, it's never about the child. It's always about a woman's
right.
Somebody's taking something from them, and in particular, they think men are. It's always about you're taking something from me, my voice, my voice, or my being. It's always
my identity.
You controlling me, and that's what the left feminists have been able to do. To say, and we as men in the society, we've also we played into this because, again, this is where we come from. Again, this is the same Marxist idea that says America's original sin is slavery, that you can never evolve past that. Man's original sin is that man was saying that man was supposed to rule over women, and we can never, and that was never where the scripture was intended. It was out of context, and it's not biblical. But we are never able to move past that, Jim. We're never move past like this. That's not what I meant by saying, hey, we're co-equals here. And so I think we have to, this is a cultural thing that we're facing. And I know that we're watching results, Jim, and we're still holding
Yeah,
tight.
We're still holding tight. Yeah.
What's the
still 550 points.
I'm looking to see if there's any school board wins.
Anything for the three toasted dads?
No, I've been trying to find out. All I know is in Sheboygan lost 2, and Sheboygan Falls 1 conservative 1. I mean, Sheboygan is where it's LeMahieu is their senator and 2 Republican in the assembly. And I'm guessing Kelly probably won Sheboygan. I don't know. I can look it up how much. And they lost
by 4 points. 4 points.
He won by school board seats. They lost the 2 seats.
So what's the disconnect?
No. Sheboygan, Kelly won by 10 points. I'm looking at it right now.
So here's the disconnect, Scarlett. How does Kelly win, but the school board representatives lose? How do we do? Is that how the city is divided?
No, I mean, because the way the Sheboygan goes, with this is no, I think that this covers the way Sheboygan's divided. This district, like that, covered most of, because it's like Sheboygan has like one big school district. But I mean, how does he win by 10 points? And is it because in that area nobody knows, the conservatives don't know who the school board members are? I think that's in Sheboygan. The conservatives are voting the top, and they don't go down ballot. Then
you cannot expect that up ballot or these mid ballot ranges will ever change. If we're not getting at the root cause and getting to the young people in schools who've been indoctrinated, then we should not be surprised of the numbers that come out of Madison, because Madison is only let's say a outgrowth of what they got in high school and elementary school. They're all going, and I may disagree, and I want someone who can challenge me on this. Are we concerned with the numbers coming out of Madison? And I think the most relevant argument I heard was from Jessica and Jim tonight. I think I heard on Dan O'Donnell as well tonight in their coverage, as these people who are moving to Wisconsin. Because my first thought is this, Jim and Ed and Scarlett, is that if these are the same young people who are moving, who are going to Madison, or from, let's say, Outagamie or from Calumet, they would have voted for the liberal in their hometown. The only difference is they were voting in Madison. So did that really change the overall number, or is there a bigger number of these transfer students or people coming over the border for school combined with the local liberal teenager or young adult? Those numbers are really what's driving this number up.
That you just made me think of something, Orlando. I know that in my area, Mequon, Thiensville, we are getting a lot of Illinois refugees that are coming here to escape the hellhole, and they're bringing their ideas with them. As a matter of fact, Michelle Obama's brother lives in my district and has a huge influence over our school board.
They sued the school board.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what are those dynamics? Because from fleeing Illinois to come to Wisconsin, how we're getting the reverse Florida effect. We're getting more Democrats coming here, and they're not changing. Whereas I know Steve Austin, he's on Twitter, he said, hey, if you're a conservative in Illinois, Michigan, or Minnesota, come move to Wisconsin and let's fortify here. Let's make Wisconsin stronger, like conservatively, like come here, move here. But is this trend that we're seeing, could we be debating all of these different things? Like, we're not messaging here, we're not doing there. And part of the problem is something that's glaring us right in the face. We are getting people moving here, especially into Dane County, where they are really growing, and a lot of industry is growing there. Are we getting an influx of liberal, left?
But that's the point that I brought up earlier, was that from Southeast Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, with COVID, it changed the demographic. And I've seen it up here. I lived in a county, Waushara County, where traditionally we are like 60, 67, 68% Republican. I'm looking at my numbers right now. 63% voted for Dan Kelly. Now, I understand a spring election, you're not going to get the, blockbuster numbers, 63%. I was the vice chair of my county last year, and I was boxed out. Okay, cool. You want to have a bridge club. It's what you wanted to do. But again, you take these rural areas for granted. If this is happening here, I'm looking at a lot of orange here in the state.
Well,
a lot of orange. And let me just finish this here.
What do you mean
much orange?
What does that mean?
Orange are the counties that voted for Janet. This is more than happened for Trump. Like, the entire state was red. And if you look at the people who voted for Biden, it was Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, that type of thing. No, we're taking it for granted, and then we wonder why we're going to lose.
Well, I'll tell you this: there was some commentary I heard on ISN tonight that made me think that we with technology being what it is, that a lot of those people that went to Madison that are from out of state, you would have thought that once they graduated, they would have went wherever the job would have brought them to. But with technology, they're able to work from home,
remote working,
so they're not leaving Madison. They're coming.
What is UW Madison refers to? Is the Berkeley of the Midwest?
Correct. So they're staying. They're able to work from home from Wisconsin. So they're not leaving. And also, there was a really valid point that our electric is getting older and quite transparently are passing away.
Yeah.
Passing away.
I have something that a friend of mine just texted me from Sheboygan, Judith Poole, and she said that a lot of the LGBTQIA plus groups registered a lot of high school kids and college kids in Sheboygan, and they voted on they want the kind of the woke gender ideology, the GSA clubs in schools. So
yeah,
that's a strategy. They went after kids who just turned 18 and sort of, and got them to go out and vote. And we
had it here in Milwaukee. We had an initiative that we're registering 18-year-olds in high school.
Hey, I asked Sarah Ann, who's one of Scarlett's biggest fans here, to come on. She wants to come on. So let me add her on here. Just so everyone knows, I'm getting some very severe storms here, so I don't know how much longer I'll be able to stay on.
We are too.
Okay.
Great.
Welcome,
Sarah
Sarah.
Ann, what's
What are your
going on?
thoughts?
Hi.
What are your thoughts, Sarah, on the race
Same.
tonight?
Same.
She's got a pup with her, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, she's got her dog.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah, you're on. Go ahead.
Go.
Go.
Okay, so I'm not surprised at all. But I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Disappointed.
So what are your thoughts? And I'll take you up on your offer. You said that you'll have to DM me, and we'll definitely. She lives in Mequon, so we'll be doing more stuff together. There's some bright spots in Ozaki, but yeah, school board race not good. Did you see what Scott Frostman said? I think this is really good news. I think he means Sun Prairie, not is that or
Yeah, I think he must mean Sun
Yeah,
Prairie.
Sun Prairie. Yeah.
Sun Prairie School District. Mom upset a long-term Uber liberal. So I want to hear more about that. What did she do that she was able to have that kind of upset in Madison? I would really like to hear more about that.
You know, we wrote some stories on Sun Prairie. There's some elementary ups there left. There's some, I mean, Sun Prairie is just fell right off the cliff in their wokeism and their transgenderism. And, you know, we wrote a couple articles about the principal wanting to record himself reading a transgender book and then have it played to kindergartens and first graders. Yeah, we wrote a story on that. And then the administration covered it up, wouldn't respond to questions from us on it. That whole district has gone crazy.
No, he says Salk.
Sauk.
Oh, there's Sauk? Okay. All right.
Can Scott come on? He was a school board member. He knows. He's been in this fight like way before. I mean,
Yeah.
in like 2009.
Crossman is a smart guy.
He is.
I will say this. I mean, one of the things that one of the takeaways, and Jim, you may have to break it down for me. Salk is a period of shame. Okay.
You're
Prairie
right.
du Sac? I've never heard of Prairie du Sac. I don't think.
No, I.
That I would love to know who voted in the school board races. And I'm going to say this, and I don't want nobody to get mad at me, but I'm just an analysis, and I'm using my business background in marketing. Was there more women that voted in the school board races than men? Because I think there's something there to the dynamic of that voter.
Oh yeah, I think there's more women that vote in the school board races. Yes, and I think listen. The left was able to. I think we had some really good results in 2020 because it was upsets. 2020, last year with Rebecca Clayfish in 1848, we had a lot of wins, a lot of takeovers. The left has mounted a counterattack, and I'll have to say a lot of this is subversive and under the radar because I've been monitoring a lot of this. Whatever they've been doing, it's been very much under the radar. They have not been. I would imagine it has to do with their data, their email lists. They're targeted. I experienced this in Mequon, Thiensville during the recall. We were everywhere. We were on every street corner. We were. I mean, everyone thought we were going to win in a landslide because you didn't see any of the candidates. They never. It's like the Joe Biden. They didn't put out ads. They didn't. All there was always attacks from the media and some mailers.
I'm thinking, man, you got my mind thinking, Scarlett. I think there's some underlying male chauvinist type. I'm gonna get back at my husband. He don't run the school board, but he may vote for the governor. Yeah. And then the husband is like, well, you run the school and you run the house, baby. And I'm not really. I'm sensing my gut is telling me something's going on here.
I think you're right. because I think you're right. It's a lot of men. When I joke around, I say that, their wife took their balls a long time ago and it's in the nightstand on the.
At least the men don't vote in the school board. More of the moms vote in the school board, and the men are okay with that.
Yeah.
That you vote for school board, and I'm just sensing some deeper issues here. Some male, women, husband, wife, daddy, daughter role issues here that are deeper. That we're just kind of, because I can tell you here in the city of Milwaukee that most Black women are going to vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
Because most Black women don't have men who are, their significant others who are able to provide. Their provider is government. And they're going to vote for government. I don't care if they go school choice or not. They're voting for government because they cannot vote for men, because the men are not reliable from the standpoint of, can they be reliable providers? And so they're going to vote for what they know they can bank on, which is they will vote for Democrats all the time, because they will always outdo what we would do. If we say, okay, we can meet you with $5, Democrats going to say, well, it should be $7. We say, okay, it's $7. They're going to say, we should be $10. They will always. Wow. I don't know. Is that profound? I'm sorry.
That never occurred to me before.
No, you're right. I mean, I think I said this to you, Jim, that there are the moms that I'm with every day that are fighting, they're strong conservative women, and there needs to be a bigger role for conservative women in Wisconsin. There are way too few vocal conservative women that people can identify.
And why is that?
That I wish there.
Quite frankly, I think it's because it's a male-dominated media, and let's just take a look at WISN for a moment. Other than Vicky, who do you have? And Jessica would be a great voice at addition. Not that she wants it; she's busy, but WISN is mainly male-dominated, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, there's.
Let me throw this here. Scott Frostman, and you got the post highlighted here. That Holly said, Scott, he said that Holly was able to tap into the upset moms. If you go back to the French Revolution, heads only started to roll when the women got upset. And really, what we need here in Wisconsin is more females, conservatives out here on these platforms. Mm-hmm. We got enough males. We can bring new males in, trade them out, whatever, like sports cars, whatever. But people like you, Scarlett, people like Jessica, people like Meg, we need to have more people. Stephanie Suchek up in Door County.
Yes, Stephanie.
Again, we need to have more female voices in here, and not just look at them in terms of male, female, but what are you bringing to the conversation? How are you elevating the conversation? Orlando and I have talked about this ad nauseum many times. How many times have we talked about this at 1 a.m.?
Man, I think we hit on some things tonight that won't come out of the Republican Party.
You're not going to. How about WISN? Whenever there's substitute, there's never a woman. There's never.
Right now.
Well, let's get you, Scarlett.
Yeah, there needs to be some women.
When you have women, we're hitting on some things here, you all. When you have women who are, brought up, let's say religiously, they think the men are the lead, and men welcome that position. I think there's a certain level of women who are voting against their husbands, and the husbands don't know when, especially coming to school board races. Yeah. I think there's a certain level of women voting against, even on the state house, that they don't know how their wives are voting. They think they're voting for one way, but they vote another way. And I think part of that is that whole, I'm a nurturer, I'm a more softer position than the husband. And I think, honestly, the houses are being split. I mean, now the numbers will bear it out, between who won with this. But I think there's a dynamic going on here, you all, that you have conservative women, or maybe women who don't have relationships, or women who are in relationships with men who are too domineering. And when they get a chance to kick back at him, they kick back at him at the voter box. And they vote for these other folks.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, I got to ask you, man.
Yeah.
We just passed that 3-hour marker.
Yeah.
And I know the Milwaukee County chairman there, he'd be all giddy about this. He loves the 3-hour mark. This has got to be the longest one you guys have done, hasn't it?
No, we had one that was longer.
Oh my God, really?
And,
We'll just
and,
keep
you,
talking.
and you forget, I have Scarlett and I have Jessica on with
Jessica.
me.
I
Trust me.
want to say, okay, when
Well,
when
you
Kevin-
hang on. Wait. Sorry. I that's the only way I ever get in is by interrupting Scarlett, and I feel bad. What was funny is that the other night we had like a 3.5 or 4 hour long podcast. Then we stopped broadcasting, and then Jessica, Scarlett, and I just stayed on and talked until 3 in the morning.
in the
Oh my
morning,
Scarlett?
God.
So it would have been 7 hours. We were on for 7 hours, and it was pretty much
we
me
just want
going.
to stop talking when Jim is
Yep,
falling
yep.
asleep. Like I need to
And
go.
Scarlett and Jessica are just yeah.
So I tell you all, I believe the abortion issue, again, I don't think it's about the baby at all. I
No.
think it's about women who believe men are, because it's a quiet inner voice that says he don't get to choose this. He can't do this. I think it's a quiet voice that rises up in them, and they voted for more times than not. I've heard conservative women, which I didn't quite understand, like, how would you vote? And they would say the same kind of talking points of liberal women, which is, it's my choice.
It's
Yeah.
4th generation feminism. That's what that is. Listen, folks, it's 11:30. I do have to bounce out because
Me too,
I'm going
me
to pretend
too.
to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, I
whoever-
think this is a great way to end it.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you, Orlando. Thank you, Ed,
guys.
for joining us. It was a great night. Appreciate it.
It is my
Great
I
honor.
want to do a shout out to Vicky and Meg, the 2 women on talk radio, and also to notice that they talk about, so they bring more women on, and they also talk about a lot of the issues in a whole different way. So I do appreciate them as a.
And also Janet brought up a great point, Orlando. How about you? What about getting you on WISN once in a while? You have great perspective that I think Southeast Wisconsin needs to hear.
Hey, I'm a phone call away.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
Let
Thank you, guys.
Let me just give one quick, couple quick shout outs here. Orlando's been, he got me on his campaign and everything. I want to thank you for that, and really opened a lot of doors. Scarlett, it was phenomenal meeting you at convention last year, and I love what you're doing. Keep doing that. Jim, you and Jessica are doing phenomenal work, and I want to thank you for doing that. And if there's a way that can help us support, and I apologize for my voice, I got like this raspy thing going on. It's like Christian Bale's Batman. But guys, keep it up. Just keep dominating. Again, the mantra I love: eat, sleep, dominate, repeat. Keep doing it.
Excellent. Thank you. We will.
Yeah, and thank everyone who voted, and everyone who's worked hard on these campaigns and the grassroots everywhere. Just thank you for all you do. I'm sure a lot of people are having a tough night. Thank you, Brian Schimming, for all you've done. Thank you and thanks Dan Kelly for running, and it sucks, but
yeah.
All right. Very good.
Gotta move
Good night,
on.
guys.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for being on.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.